bless you and keep you.
Make his face shine upon you
And be gracious to you.
The Lord turn his face toward you
And give you peace.
The Lord bless you
And keep you.
Make his face shine upon you.
and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you.
And give you peace.
Manna rain down from heaven. This isn't second guessing. We know that we are protected. May the peace that surpasses all understanding be our message. Grace and favors in your nature, in your
May
essence.
his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations,
And your family, and your children,
and the children, and the children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He is with you. He is with you in the morning.
Good afternoon, everyone. We had a lovely time. Good afternoon, everyone. We had a lovely time in the morning, enjoying the message. It was beautiful. I'm sure we were all blessed this afternoon, learning about our kingdom redeemer, Jesus Christ, knowing the person Jesus Christ. I just want to welcome you this afternoon to this exceptional service where we will acknowledge, we will appreciate those of us that did great things during the lockdown. Galatians 6 verses 9 says, "Let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart." So we just want to thank God for his goodness. When in the lockdown, there were men and women that were reaching out to humanity. So we just want to give thanks to all the brave NHS health sector staff on the front line in Area 2, who worked in hospitals like Bath, in Bristol, in Cheltenham, in Gloucester, in Oxford, in Reading, in Swindon, weston-super, Taunton, Yeovil, and all the dedicated care home workers in Berkshire, in Gloucestershire, in Somerset, in supermarkets, factories. We just want to thank and acknowledge all those that did great things, not only in the home care sector or home workers, but also those that provided services in essential services like the post offices. We want to give them the special thanks, the supermarket, the food factories, the schools, and the list can go on and on. Those that did great things during the pandemic. So we want just to acknowledge and give certificates to really those that did great things during the pandemic. And on the screen, we can see our thanks to the healthcare workers, the doctors, the nurses, the medical technicians, the radiologists, the dentists, the nurses, the midwives, the pharmacists. We just want to say a big thank you for all of you in our area for great things that you did during the lockdown when everybody else were in their safety of the homes. You were so brave to leave your homes and to go and reach out to the people in the community. And we want to say thank you. So we want to present the certificate to all Area 2 NHS and health sector workers. We want to give you a big thank you and may God bless you. We want to acknowledge or recognize the care, your compassionate service during COVID-19 pandemic. Also, we want to acknowledge the care workers who really did great things as well. And we want to present their certificate as well. All Area 2 care home workers, we want to say thank you for your exceptional service during the lockdown when it was risky to go out there. You rolled your sleeves and you reached out to serve humanity. So a big thank you to all of you. Now I'll leave it to Spasse also to give certificates to other workers that we nominated from Bath, Bristol Central, Bristol North, Cheltenham, Swindon, and Yeovil churches. Spasse.
Hi, thank you so much, Pastor Namushi. That was really wonderful to just kickstart. And so I just wanna thank you all for just participating with us and continuing with this program. So I just want to continue with a special thanks for Area 2 essential service workers. So I would like to thank you, Pastor Namushi, for that. We wanna give a great thanks for Malaika Malika Charles, and the Sunfield Care Home team. Really, they have done exceptionally. This is in Cheltenham, and they've done a great work for the community during these times. And so please, Pastor Nawishi, I can see you. Yeah, amazing. Wow, what a brilliant, you know, this team must have been so, look at that excited picture there. And we're gonna see now the certificate, I think, Malika Charles and the Sunfield Care Home team. What a wonderful. So thank you so much for what you do. It is not easy, especially during these times. Working in the care home sector, there has been a lot of need, and you have put yourself in really in the most hardest places, but you have worked, and your dedication is not unnoticed, and especially God sees you. So thank you so much for that. I want to continue here with yeah, I think we're gonna leave it to Pastor Namushi next one.
Yeah, we want to acknowledge Jenny. Jenny, actually from Bath Church. Jenny, it was her first full-time job since leaving university. And she went in during the pandemic, working long shifts in a hospital lab, testing to COVID-19, people that were coming in for testings. But she always remained happy. First time from university, fresh into the workplace, she went out there, and we just want to acknowledge her work.
Now the next one is very personal to home to myself. And as we talked over the week with Pastor Namushi, he said, you know, I must leave this one to you. And I just want to know if by any chance Jessica is in our presence in the midst. I sent an email over on Friday. How do we find out if Jessica is around here? We just like to see her on the screen. Is anybody able to? Are we able to see Jessica, AV team?
I don't think she's in the. She's available. So go on, Spasi.
Okay, so we just want to thank you, Jessica, for what you have done. You know, during these times, my wife gave birth to a wonderful baby boy, but it wasn't very easy because this baby came really at the peak of the pandemic, and it was really, really hard. But what happened to Jessica was an exceptional person who helped us during these times. The way how she carried herself, the quality of service, the smiles, and the way how she worked in serving us was something that I have rarely seen, and it really truly inspired me. So thank you, Jessica, for this. Now, Pastor Namushi, with Mary Philip.
The next one is the certificate goes to Mary Philip. Mary Philip, really, it was interesting when she shared something with me during the pandemic. You know, a lot of people, there was a lot of anxiety, especially the nurses and the doctors going there, not knowing what to do with this terrible, terrible, invisible enemy. And there was a lot of anxieties in the staff. So Mary Philip really, with her colleagues at work, she organized everyone just to keep up the morale, just to make it all fun, to remove all the anxiety as a frontline worker, as a nurse. So Mary Philip, she organized with the idea came to organize something just to cheer the nurses and the doctors up. And I'll ask the video, please, to play on how they were just cheering themselves up in this pandemic, the medical staff. Pastor Shipley, the video. Mary is holding the pillow.
In a minute, I'm going to start showing you the music. Right, ready, on, go.
I wish, is Mary in the house? Mary, just to explain a little bit more about that video, as I did explain, this is just to keep the morale going for the staff. It was a time of anxiety, so they just decided to mobilize themselves and just have fun. Spase.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Pastor Namushi. Want to say, a very special thanks also to the Project Up, young people from Cheltenham. This was something born really from the young people, and I want to specially say thank you to the Project Up young people from Cheltenham. And so, whoops, yep. Also from weston-super, Swindon, and other churches who've joined, and they worked in this Project Up together. And actually, they raised about £3,000 for ADRA. Specifically, want to say also thank you to Sarah Hurlow from Bath, who was supporting an elderly neighbor who lost her husband to COVID-19. And she was herself hospitalized with COVID-19 herself as well. And an amazing thing is about for Sarah, what she has done is Sarah has done all the shopping and phoned every day and provide a hot meal every day. And also Clever Tinawa from the Yeovil Church. So Sarah, hello, thank you so much. Yes. Maybe Pastor Namushi, you can take over from there.
Thank you so much. So we'll see appreciation from Yeovil Church, Clever Tinaro. He has been recognized for exceptional service to the community and church families during the lockdown. Also, we want to acknowledge all the church leaders, really, the elders. You did exceptional service when the pastors were on furlough. You were there to ensure that church was running. You just did extra miles. We went beyond the call of duty, really, to ensure that members were ministered unto, and also to ensure that all our members were safe during the lockdown. Just want to show you this page about the different churches in Area 2, springing from Gloucester way up to Taunton. So we just want to say thank you so much for everybody, especially the leaders, elders. We want to acknowledge those that really took over. We want to say thank you. Elders in Area 2, we acknowledge your work. You have been fantastic. You have been amazing. Not only that, we want to acknowledge also one of our brilliant Cindy Mabena. One of Cindy Mabena was a Bible worker, not only in Bristol churches, but the entire Area 2. We just want to say thank you so much, Cindy, for your exceptional work, especially when the ministers were on furlough. You worked tirelessly throughout. Is Cindy in the house? We just want to acknowledge your presence, and we just want to say thank you to you. Cindy? Cindy is not there. Back to Spase.
Okay, thank you so much. We want to just also recognize Precious Masuku. I think that's the next slide, right? Am I correct, Pastor Namushi?
Yeah.
Now, she's from Bath Church, and she's a clerk, but she managed to keep in contact with all the members during this particularly difficult and heavy times during the lockdown, you know. And although she is a mom herself, she became like a church mom, literally. And even though she's suffering from chronic health issues herself, she was able to take upon this challenging thing to keep everybody connected.
Thank you. We want to appreciate Thomas. Thomas has been recognizing for providing patient training on how to set up Zoom to Area 2 churches. So Chris, we really want to really appreciate your hard work. We also want to acknowledge Robin Beamish. Robin Beamish also for inspiring praise and worship across Area 2. Big thank you to you, Chris, and thank you so much for your hard work. Spase.
Yes, I'd like to, I think that's the last one, isn't it? We have, yes. Esther, are you here? Esther, I'm sure you're here. We just want to say a special thank you to Esther. She's been described as a tireless leader, prayer warrior and leader. So thank you so much, Esther, for doing this great thing that's literally united Swindon Church and provided a platform for greater ministry around the wider area as well. So thank you for all your hard work.
We want to remind all the church members, of course, we have acknowledged some names here, but we just want to say thank you to everybody. All the churches, all the church members, you were there for one another, phoning each other, making sure you are safe. For our leaders, the elders, the general church membership, you were there for each other, your brothers keepers and sisters keepers. We just want to say a big thank you. And I want to remind you, if you want a certificate, please, of appreciation, we have certificates of appreciations for all our elders. So just ask from your local church pastors. They will offer you the certificate. Apart from this certificate of these people that we have acknowledged, we acknowledge the entire sisterhood of churches, the members, the tireless work that you did during the lockdown. Everybody, we just want to say a big thank you for being there for one another. We're not sure whether there's another lockdown on its way in the sense that we've seen COVID still going up. We just want to encourage you. We want to encourage you to be there for one another. Again, in ending, I want to remind you with Galatians chapter 6, verses 9. Let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. May God bless all of you, and may God keep you, and may God continue to use you as we do exploits for our coming King. Spase.
Well, thank you, Pastor Namushi. Just to say my closing remarks as well. Serving in the Swindon Old Town and Devices group, I firsthand, Pastor Namushi, was able to see, how these tireless leaders that you've pointed out and elders among the 20 churches. And I just want to also recognize the name of Peter Yusudian. He worked exceptionally, Pastor Namushi, during this time. And so we want to thank you, Peter Yusudian. I don't know if you're around here, but thank you for fantastic work. And it's hard, friends, to remember to put all of the names here today. But God sees you, and He knows your hard work. Continue the good work, and in due time, you will get your reward, especially from the Lord. So thank you, Pastor Namushi, for putting this together and really providing, just recognizing some of the names. And as we are aware, there are a lot more names out there, and we are going to look out to find you and to see if we can also honor you for another opportunity, another time. So may God continue to bless you.
So in closing, someone just posted saying, appreciation to all church Zoom hosts. Thank you very much that even though we're in lockdown, we could still come together and worship and have a virtual worship. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
You're the first face that I see, and the last thing I think about. You're the reason that I'm alive. You're what I can't live without. You're what I can't live without. You never give up when I'm falling apart. Your arms are always open wide, and you're quick to forgive when I make a mistake. You love me in the blink of an eye. I don't deserve your love, but you give it to me anyway. Can't get enough. You're everything I need, and when I walk away, you take off running and come right after me. It's what you do, and I don't deserve you. You're the light inside my eyes. You give me a reason to keep trying. You give me more than I could dream, and you bring me to my knees. deserve your love, but you give it to me anyway. Can't get enough. You're everything I need, and when I walk away, you take off running and come right after me. It's what you do, and I don't deserve you. I don't deserve a chance like this. I don't deserve a love that gives me everything. You're everything I want. I don't deserve your love, but you give it to me anyway. Can't get enough. You're everything I need, and when I walk away, you take off running and come right after me. It's what you do, and I don't deserve you.
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. I hope all of us had a wonderful morning, and I hope this afternoon is going to be a blessed afternoon. We are very blessed to have with us in this afternoon Dr. Enk and Dr. Chidi. I'm going to introduce them briefly. Dr. Enk, originally from Germany, is a GP in Marlborough, and she leads the health team of the Swindon Church. She also has a PhD in pharmacology and also participate in several health expo events and giving presentations on a variety of health-related topics. Dr. Chidi, of course, most of us know him, is a leading lifestyle doctor, having trained in surgery, general practice, and lifestyle medicine at Cambridge, UCL, and Johns Hopkins. He is a founding board member of the European Society of Lifestyle Medicine and has over 20 years of experience as a national and international health and motivational speaker, including presenting at TED Talks and reversing diseases. He has served at the SEC for 10 years. The presentation will be first Dr. Enk, and soon it will be Dr. Chidi. The presentation will be until around, it will be running a bit late, but around 4:15, 4:20. And after that, we're gonna have a little time for question and answers. I'm welcome all of them, especially Dr. Enk and Dr. Chidi, and then God bless you and have a nice time with us.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, guten Tag.
Guten Tag. My name is Anke Limkohl. I'm a GP in Marlborough, and I was invited to give a talk this afternoon. Now, there are about 2 topics I think we are all heartily fed up with, and we really don't want to hear anything more about. One of them is Brexit. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk about that. The other one is coronavirus, the dreaded COVID-19 that has caused so much trouble, lockdown, children couldn't go to school, the economy is suffering. It's all very dreadful, and we all wished it would just go away and life would go back to normal. Unfortunately, that is not yet going to happen. We still have to live a little bit longer with this problem. And for this reason, I was invited today to tell you a little bit more about coronavirus. So let's see whether this works. Is this sharing now? Can you all see this PowerPoint slide? Is this visible?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about coronavirus, what it is, what it does, how it affects people, and what we need to know about it to stay healthy. I give my special thanks to Dr. Colleen McDooling, who has supported me in this. So, what is coronavirus? Well, it is a new virus of the corona class, and you can see why it's called coronavirus, which means crown or halo, because this virus has got lots of little spikes around that makes it look like it has got a crown or a halo on it. Normally, this type of virus originates in bats and other wild animals where it should stay, but unfortunately, through wildlife trade in countries like China, in this case near Wuhan, this virus got into food items and into the human population. And as we all know, end of last year, a worldwide pandemic started, particularly as the Chinese government did not clamp down on it straight away. And nowadays, the coronavirus infections have spread to literally all countries in the world and causing trouble, killing people, and causing lots of interruption. Now, what is a virus and how does it look? A virus is very, very small. It is much smaller than bacteria. If you imagine a bacterium of the size of a pumpkin, a virus would have the size of a blueberry, perhaps. It usually consists of a shell that has got a variety of proteins and structures on it. In the case of the coronavirus, it has got these strange little spikes with which it hooks into cell surfaces. And the purpose of that is to make a little hole in the cell surface and to inject this coil of RNA, which is a molecule that contains the genetic information of the virus. And basically the virus hijacks other cells of the host animal or humans and forces these cells, like slaves, to make more components for the virus and build many, many more viruses. The sole purpose of a virus is to make numerous copies of itself and to spread. So it's a very simple mechanism, but very effective. As you can see, with all these different structures on the cell surface, these are all targets for attempts to create a vaccine, to help the human immune system to recognize surface structures of the virus and to butt it off next time it comes along, creating immunity. Now, how many people are affected by this problem? So far, about worldwide cases have reached 32 million. That's about half the population of Britain. Saying that, that is the number we know about, considering the rather vague and not very clear symptoms of this virus. There might be many more. In the UK, there have been about 400,000 confirmed cases. Worldwide, this pandemic so far has led to 965,000 deaths, about 41,700 within the UK. We have got the highest number of all deaths in Europe. And cases have been found in all countries of the world, including remote islands and tribal communities in the Indian Ocean somewhere. And probably there are many more cases that have not even been identified. Now, how bad is this virus actually? How lethal is it? This slide compares a number of common viruses and how deadly they are, the case fatality rate, how many infected people will die. The worst one on this list here is bird flu that kills about 60% of infected people. And just below it is Ebola. 1 in 2 patients infected with Ebola will die of it. And then comes a number of other illnesses. And where is actually COVID-19? Here it's D. 3.4 out of 100 infected patients will die. That doesn't sound too bad. Considering that just next to it is the Spanish flu that in 1918 caused a worldwide pandemic that killed only 2.5 people out of 100. So why are we also up in arms about coronavirus and have lockdown and all these things? Well, the sheer numbers are the problem. The Spanish flu managed to infect about 1/3 of the world's population, killing about 50 million people. So although the percentage of infected people dying is not very high, it's the sheer number of people getting infected by this problem that leads to the trouble. Now, how is this virus transmitted? So far, we have identified 3 ways of transmission. By far, the most common one is droplet infection. Whether we like it or not, we all splutter and spit when we talk to various degrees. Most of these droplets are very small. We can't see them. Only when you have got special side light or make it visible with laser light, you see all these little droplets that come out of our mouths when we are talking. Because of course, voice is generated in our voice box by our lungs squeezing out air through the voice box. If you talk very quietly, or if you just sit there with your mouth shut and breathe through your nose, you will generate very few droplets. There is very low flow. If you are talking, like I do now, yes, with your voice, a number of droplets will be splattered out. that very much magnifies when you are shouting, because there's more pressure on your airways and the droplets will fly further. Singing as well has been identified as a source of infection. You remember that famous choir in Oregon somewhere where out of 60 choir singers, 45 got infected and 2 actually died after a choir rehearsal in a church. The really bad offenders are cough. When you really cough, 3,000 droplets about on average get splattered out and fly with much more pressure a further distance. And the really bad offender is sneezing, where up to 30,000 droplets get catapulted up to 18 feet. Well, do you remember the old saying? Coughs and sneezes spread diseases. And remember, sneezing is often the first symptom of an infection. Very sneakily, a virus infection makes you sneeze as one of the first symptoms, so the virus can hop on to other hosts before you are even identified as ill and you might isolate yourself. Although viruses are very simple creatures, they are very, very clever and sneaky. So droplet infection can be very much reduced by a barrier in front of your face. And hence, we are all supposed to wear masks because that reduces the droplets we are producing by about down to 1/6. Most of the droplets that come out with talking get held back, and also we inhale less droplets that other people produce. Well, the second problem is more difficult to contain, and I'm talking here about aerosols. Aerosols are also droplets, but much, much finer than droplets. While most droplets are big enough that due to gravity, they will eventually be pulled down and fall to the ground or land on surfaces, the aerosol droplets are so very fine that they do not respond to gravity. They just float in the air. And with very weak drafts in the air, they get swirled around, they spread all through the room. And if you are long enough in that room, even if you are 10 yards away from an infected person, the aerosol droplets might swirl around and reach you. Which procedures produce a lot of aerosols? The most dangerous one is intubation of ill patients. This is a procedure in hospital where doctors put tubes down a patient's throat to put a ventilator on, and doctors need to wear the really, really high protection N95 masks, because when they bent over the patient, they would get the full blast in their faces. And this is why the best masks need to be reserved for hospital work. What people often don't know is that electric hand dryers also produce aerosols. If you wash your hands and you don't really do the 20-second washing plus disinfecting, you still have got virus material on your hands, on your wet hands. You stick your wet hands under the air dryer, the air blasts on your hand and literally pulverizes the water droplets and vaporizes them and throws them into the air. And these droplets stay in the washing room, in the toilet, in the air for up to 3 hours. And every person who walks into that toilet afterwards has got a good chance of inhaling a good load of those aerosols. Toilet flushing as well produces aerosols. So the trick here is to close the lid before you flush. That very much reduces the aerosol production. A third way of transmitting the coronavirus or any other infection is surface infection, because outside the body, the viruses stay alive for a certain period of time. They were found to stay alive on cardboard and paper for about 24 hours. So watch your mail that gets delivered to your house. But on plastic, they can stay alive for 72 hours. So it's not necessarily a bad idea to wipe down your shopping and your mail, or door handles, number pads, telephones, keyboards at work, anything that you might share with other people. Because if everybody has got their fingers on the number pad or the door handles, and you touch that and then you rub your nose or rub your eye or lick your finger, that is a way of infecting yourself. So, number one, clean surfaces, and very importantly, keep your fingers out of your face. Try not to have the habit of fiddling in your face, rubbing your nose and all these things, because your hands transmit not just coronavirus, but lots of other things. And each time you touch mucous membranes, your lips, your tongue, your nose, your eyes, you can introduce infections into the body. So keep your hands out of your face. That is a very important way of reducing infection. What determines the risk of you actually picking up an infection? The most important thing is probably viral load and exposure time. A big viral load and a long exposure time obviously gives you a good load that might overrun your immune system. On the other hand, a big viral load but a very short exposure time might not be a risk so much. Imagine you walk in the park and a jogger comes running behind you, overtakes you, panting and huffing, and you think, oh, he is spreading virus, and you hold your breath. It is an outdoor activity, there is wind, and that jogger is past you very quickly. So a relatively low infection risk. Your viral load will be low. On the other hand, if you visit a nightclub, an enclosed space, you stay there several hours and you go on the dance floor where lots and lots of other people are all dancing, physical exercise, huffing and puffing, sweating, you will get a massive viral load in an enclosed space over a longer period of time, and that will very well lead to an infection. There are so-called super spreader events, and one of them actually happened in a nightclub in Korea, where one infected person who was symptom-free himself infected 153 other people in a nightclub. Well, how many of us go to a nightclub? Unfortunately, churches are a similar place. We like to sing together, don't we? So sitting in a filled room and singing together would be a high viral load and a long exposure time, which is precisely the reason that most of our activities are now on media like Zoom, and we try to stay apart simply to reduce the risk. Indoor locations and poor ventilation, high risk. So make sure that when you are together with other people or you share other rooms, the kitchen in your workplace or offices, keep the window open, that there is always a very slight draft that clears out the air of the room. Noise levels have been identified as a risk. Why would that be so? Well, what happens when you are in a noisy environment? You shout, don't you? And you lean over to shout at others a little bit closer. Well, faces close together, high viral load directly in your face, high infection risk. Hence, places like meat processing plants have been identified as places of high risk of infection, but also one reason why nursing homes have been affected so badly, apart from infected people being sent home from the hospitals, is that old people in nursing homes are often hard of hearing. And of course, then carers and other people bend down to them and shout into their faces. This is a high risk activity, be aware of that. Also, use of air conditioner or airflow in the wrong direction from infected people to others has been identified as a risk. So be aware of that. Now, how infectious is coronavirus actually? Not every virus, not every infection is the same. If you look at seasonal flu, one infected person on average infects one other person. So flu epidemics usually run relatively slow. Bird flu, swine flu, Ebola, although it is very deadly, is also not that infectious. 1.9 people get infected on average by one person, which still means it will spread if you are not clamping down on it immediately. COVID-19 is sort of in the lower mid-range. it is not that highly infective compared with actually HIV. And the most infective ones are chickenpox and measles. With measles, if you are susceptible to measles, you literally just have to be in the same room and you will get it. It's highly aerosol transmitted. So looking at these numbers, I think we are relatively lucky that coronavirus is what it is, and it is not as deadly as Ebola and as infective as measles. Then we would have a real problem. Now, what happens when the coronavirus enters our body? After entering, usually through the mucous membranes of mouth, nose, airways, eyes, it causes, in most cases, nothing. Apparently 40 to 60% of all cases have got no symptoms. Asymptomatic carriers. They feel well in themselves or just have got one afternoon where they are a little bit under the weather, but they don't have any obvious signs of illness. And they get missed when somebody stands there with a thermometer at the airport or whatever. They are regarded as healthy, but they can spread the virus. This is why it is so important that everybody wears a mask. We don't worry so much about the people with fever who are coughing and spluttering and are obviously ill. We worry about the asymptomatic people who wander about, go to the supermarket, go to work, but are still able to spread the virus. If it makes you ill, the typical symptoms are flu-like symptoms: fever, chills, muscle ache, sore throat, cough, runny nose, wanting to go to bed with a hot water bottle. A smaller percentage of people, usually those with underlying problems already, develop complications from this illness, and they usually develop one of two major problems. One is severe respiratory distress syndrome, a little bit more about it in a moment, which leads to extreme breathlessness and death, or an immune system overreaction that then kills the person about 10, 11 days after the onset of the illness, when people thought they were getting better already. Also now, the longer this epidemic is running, the more cases we see of people who seem to have long-term problems recovering from it. They are lumbered with, they haven't died in the beginning, but they are lumbered with all sorts of problems that just don't go away. Malaise, chronic fatigue, breathing problems, chest pain, and we don't know how long they are going to be ill. The death rate of coronavirus, as I said, is about 3 to 4%. And as doctors learn to treat this disease, the death rate has actually gone down. Now, a little bit about acute respiratory distress syndrome. On the left side of the slide, you see a normal bit of lung tissue. It's a little cut out of lung tissue. So here you see a little air sac at the end of the airways, normally filled with air, a thin layer through which the oxygen drifts into the little blood vessels around, where the red blood cells pick up the oxygen and carry it to the rest of the body. With coronavirus, you face mainly two problems that are lethal. One of it is an inflammation of the little air sacs, lots of sticky stuff and glue-like secretion that actually fill up the little air sac. And this is why just pumping air in with ventilation is not really solving the problem. There is fluid in there. And the second problem that seems to be causing death is that coronavirus seems to increase blood clotting to a very unhealthy level. People develop lots of blood clots that then, number one, impairs the oxygen transport, and number two, literally blocks the circulation system in the lungs, so that the patients then end up with heart failure. The heart can't pump against this blockage in the system, and they perish of heart failure. Since doctors have worked out these mechanisms, we have started to treat it with, for example, steroids to reduce this inflammation reaction here. And patients are put on blood thinners virtually straight away to reduce or stop this blood clotting problem. You might have heard the word cytokine storm. What is that? That is an immune system overreaction that often sets in around day 10 of the infection. The body tries to fight the infection. The macrophage cells cause a release of cytokines, which are inflammation cells. And this sets off a vicious circle of fluid being released and fluid leaking out of the blood vessels. And the little air sacs in the lungs literally fill up with fluid, and the patient then drowns internally. Again, this is something, since we have learned about it, steroids and other immune suppressive drugs are being used to treat that. But not everybody gets the classic sore throat, cough, fever symptoms. A number of other symptoms have turned up that seem strangely unrelated to the mechanism. For example, a lot of people experience the loss of sense of smell or taste, often for something like 2 to 4 weeks. And that has become so common that it's now actually on the list of, look out for these symptoms. A number of children, although children generally seem to sail through it very easily, a number of children have ended up with a serious inflammatory illness for which they have to be hospitalized, and it's quite serious. Many of the complications of coronavirus seem to be linked to blood vessel problems, blood clots, pulmonary embolus, the COVID toes, as they have been named, symptoms that look like chilblains and caused by capillary blood vessel problems in the extremities, thrombosis causing problems. Also, some people get gastrointestinal problems, diarrhea and vomiting. Those who get diarrhea seem to have a worse prognosis than others for some reason. If you have got underlying liver problems, liver cirrhosis, it will hit you very hard. And some people develop heart problems from coronavirus, a condition called myocarditis, where the heart muscle cells get inflamed, and that can lead to heart failure. Lung fibrosis, which obviously will leave you with lifelong lung problems. And there were a number of cases where people got brain problems from coronavirus, brain inflammation, delirium, strokes, hallucinations, psychotic symptoms, nerve damage. So there are a few other weird things going on with this virus that might not kill the patient, but lead to yet unknown long-term complications. And this is why doctors are so worried about these young fools that feel the need to attend corona parties. This is something you do not want to challenge, because we don't know how bad the future complications might get. There is an increasing number of people who complain about long-term problems with coronavirus. Apparently, only about half of all patients sail through the acute illness in about 2 weeks. And an increasing number of people complain about tiredness, brain fog, concentration problems, seizures, dizziness, balance problems, memory loss, confusion, loss of exercise tolerance, feeling ill in a very unspecific way, chest pains that are not linked to anything in particular. Many people can't sleep properly, anxiety, depression, because it just doesn't get better. Many people are not able to go back to work because of their chronic fatigue. And 60% of these long COVID patients report a worse quality of life. What if people who are careless about COVID because they think, oh, I'm young, I'm fit, I'm healthy, I don't have complications. It doesn't matter if I get it because, hey, it will just be like the flu and I'll be fine. How would you feel if any of these symptoms would affect you then? Not nice. This slide shows the number of new cases and deaths reported worldwide each day since the start of the outbreak. And you see it starts in February 20, very low, and then sort of March, April, May, it goes up exponentially, whoosh, the cases go up. And now it is sort of plateauing in a certain way. But you see a big discrepancy. The death cases are the red ones, and they are really just the tips of the icebergs. Only a very small percentage of affected people are dying. What doctors are now nearly more worried of are this huge number of people that are under the death curve, that have been affected by coronavirus, many of them still having ongoing symptoms, of which we do not know how many of them will develop long-term chronic conditions that might affect them and their work ability in future. So please try not to get this infection unnecessarily, because there are many unknown factors, and those who don't die are worrying us as much as those who are at risk of dying. Well, how often can you get it? Many infections, measles or something like that, you get once and then you are through with it. And in the beginning, doctors thought, oh, well, it will just go through the population, and once everybody had it, then we will be finished with it. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be that simple. There were documented cases of patients who had it twice, confirmed by swabs. The problem seems to be that the antibodies that the body produces, little proteins that are like a key in a lock fit for the surface of the coronavirus, and that alert the immune system if this virus ever comes back and tries to reinfect the body. These antibodies seem to disappear after a number of weeks and months. There are still some other ways the body can have a memory of previous infections via the T cells and things like that. But the problem with the disappearing antibodies worries the scientists, because it might mean that potentially you can get it again and again. There are other coronaviruses that cause cough and cold-like symptoms, and you can get them again. And also it means, how do we get herd immunity if everybody can get it again? So far, scientists think that only between 7 and 25% of the population have been infected yet. So we are nowhere near the 85–90% herd immunity we might need. And that also explains the problem with the vaccinations. If the antibodies disappear, how will the body remember with a vaccination what virus to fight next time? So far, apparently a minimum of 41 different universities, pharmaceutical firms, and so on are working on vaccines, on all the different structures of the virus. But it doesn't seem to be as simple and straightforward as we had hoped. What are the risks of getting it badly and actually to die of it? The main risk appears to be age. The elderly are usually having a weaker immune system. They also typically have got more underlying long-term health problems, like heart problems, like diabetes and so on, that makes them an easier target for this virus. Obesity seems to double the risk of critical illness. A very high percentage of people who became critically ill, who ended up with long-term complications and who died, were obese. Diabetes turned out to be one of the biggest risk factors, because diabetes is already an inflammatory condition that inflames the blood vessels. Most of the complications of diabetes are due to the blood vessel damage it causes. Do you remember the previous slide where the blood vessels were all inflamed and started to clog up, killing the patient? Well, if you've got diabetes on top of that, that risk is much higher. Underlying illnesses like liver cirrhosis, the death rate of patients with liver cirrhosis is 36%. Very bad. Smoking seems to put your risk up 25%. Well, coronavirus attacks the lungs, among other things, and if your lungs are full of tar and have got already damage from smoking, your chances are obviously poor. Air pollution has also been found to be a major risk, impairing your chances. The risk goes up 17% if you live in a very polluted area. And poverty is also unfortunately a risk. Probably the combination of being overweight, which is higher in poorer parts of the population and less access to healthcare. Well, what is the healthcare system doing about it, and how is the healthcare system coping? Worldwide, at least 1,800 doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers have died in their fight against this illness. Most care staff and doctors and nurses have gone to work, have tried to help people, and even with good protection, and the personal protection equipment was very thin on the ground in the beginning, and a lot of doctors complained about its absence. Even with good protection equipment, the healthcare staff has got a 3 times higher chance of illness and death. So, yes, a praise for the healthcare workers of all areas. Worryingly, 2/3 of the healthcare workers who fell seriously ill and died came from ethnic minorities, even in countries where, you know, these people are generally only making a small percentage of the population.
Dr. Anko, I'm sorry for interrupt you. We're a bit run off the time. We have to finish in 5 minutes because Dr.
Okay, well, I try to hurry up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the healthcare system is not working very well. They are getting better at it. Things are speeding up a bit. What can we do now? We need to try to flatten the curve. You might have heard that. Flattening the curve means simply trying to keep the number of infections at any time down so that the healthcare system is not being overwhelmed and can cope with the numbers of cases that are coming in. And very importantly, the interruption of the transmission of the infection. So masks to keep your own bugs to yourself, good hygiene, the hand washing, cleaning of surfaces, avoid close contact with people that are not from your household, distancing. Remember, the further you are away from people, the less the splattering droplets fly. Avoid mass events. Yeah, attending parties, demonstrations, big meetings is high risk. Make sure you have got good ventilation in your places where you live. Protect the vulnerable and strengthen your own health and your own resilience. And Dr. Chidi will now talk about that in particular. So the outlook is COVID-19 is a marathon, not a sprint. We have to keep going. The duty to the community must override the individual rights. We all have to do our part in it. And there are many unknown variables. Try not to get this infection in the first place. Thank you very much for your attention. Over to Dr. Chidi.
Hello.
Hi, Pastor. Hi, Doctor. You are literally on now. You have to unmute yourself, Dr. Chidi.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anker. That was a very comprehensive and detailed presentation. We really appreciate it. I don't think we would expect anything less from a German doctor from the land of Mercedes, BMW, Audi, and Porsche. You know, we are truly, truly blessed by your presentation. Now, I'm not sure we have enough time for my British Leyland version of a talk, but what I'm going to do is just do say one or two things, and then we'll take some questions. And really, all that is left to talk about is, okay, so we know about coronavirus. What then about the things we can do to help protect ourselves? And let's just look at one or two things. Dr. Anker quite rightly said that many people who die with coronavirus or COVID-19 have underlying diseases. In fact, early on, we knew that over 99% of the people who die from coronavirus or COVID-19 have an underlying disease, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, something like that. Now, if that's true, well, maybe there's something we can do about it, because we know what these diseases are. if we can do something to eliminate those diseases, then perhaps we can reduce the risk of getting COVID-19. Look, I always think of these, what we call lifestyle diseases, as a bear stalking us in the distance. You know, we can live with hypertension, we can live with diabetes, we can live with heart disease. We don't want to, we'd rather not, in the same way that we do not want a bear stalking us from the distance. But because it's in the distance, it's not so dangerous. I can live with it. I can go to the hospital, I can take my medication. But what COVID-19 has done it's kind of given that bear a rocket boost injection. So it's now up on our shoulders, so that disease that we thought we could live with is now lethal. You know, there are many people who say to me, well, you know, I've got high blood pressure, I'll just take the medication, I'll go to my hospital appointments. What this virus is demonstrating to all of us is that whilst you are in this sickness, whilst you're still taking the medication, your body is under an awful lot of stress. So all it takes now is another outside stress, like a virus. It could be COVID-19, it could be influenza, and that will produce disastrous effects. I mean, the statistic I just talked about, it sounds over the top. Over 99% of deaths had people who already had a lifestyle disease. That seems dramatic, but it's absolutely true. It may even be larger than that. And obviously, this is what I spend a lot of my time talking about, the big lifestyle diseases, how to prevent them, how to reverse them. And it shows me and shows everybody I talk to that whatever disease comes along, if we can monitor, moderate, and change our lifestyle, we can always have a better chance of beating the disease. It is always a good idea to look after our lifestyle. Okay, I'm not going to go on too much on that because I don't think we have a lot of time, but what I want to talk about one other thing. So as well as lifestyle, this thing about race against COVID, because as Dr. Anker said, people of color, Black people, Asian people, they're dying at much higher rates from COVID-19 than people who are Caucasian. And we just want to find out, well, why is that? Well, what's the evidence for that? I mean, we've seen it in our deaths, in our disparities in this country. White people are 85% of the population. They have 73% of the deaths from COVID-19. Black people are 3.5%, but they have almost double that in terms of deaths. So why should that be? It's not just in this country, it's in the other countries too. This is in America. You can see that Black people take up 32% in Louisiana of the population, 70% of the deaths of COVID-19. And, you know, all of those statistics say that there's something going on. Well, I'm going to try and cut to the chase because we don't have a lot of time. What is going on? Well, it started with the evidence about what's going on under the sun. You know, if you go back, because even though Black people are dying in the West at high numbers, in Africa, they're not dying at high numbers. You know, in Nigeria, it has a population of nearly 200 million so far. Fewer than 1,000 people have died totally. So, and they're not richer than the people in the West. So something is going on. And the biggest thing has to do with the sunshine. Now, sunshine, we know, destroys coronavirus when it's out in the open. That's one thing. But there's something else going on as well. Perhaps if I just show this slide, vitamin D level. So we know that sunshine generates vitamin D. Anybody who listens to me knows that I talk a lot about vitamin D. But this experiment or this study showed mild, ordinary, severe, and critical cases of COVID-19. Now, the green shows that people who have good and high levels of vitamin D in their blood. Yellow, moderate, red, poor. So as you can see, if you have lots of vitamin D in your blood, see the graph on the far right, mainly green, even if you get a case of COVID-19, it is very mild. If your blood levels of vitamin D get lower and lower, the severity and the criticality of the disease increases. That seems quite obvious. Here's another more stark experiment. It just shows that if your vitamin D levels are deficient, this was done in Indonesia, 780 patients. If your blood levels of vitamin D are deficient and you got COVID-19 in Indonesia, you had a 98.9% chance of dying. That's almost 100%. If your levels were normal, you only had a 4.1% chance. Now, why is that relevant to Black people and Asian people in the West? It's relevant because we don't get enough vitamin D. Whatever color you are in Britain, we don't get enough sun. And if you have dark skin, you have much more barriers to getting enough sunshine, getting enough vitamin D. So low levels of vitamin D in the blood are very, very critical in terms of your disease progression with COVID-19. If you look up, even I saw in Sky News yesterday, they published a study that came from America proving this very point. I'd advise you to look that up. I mean, they did a study of over 300 people, and there is irrefutable evidence that vitamin D levels are linked to our survival rates from COVID-19. So I know we're looking for vaccines, we're looking for treatments. Vitamin D and lifestyle change can do so much more to protect us from this virus and all the viruses to come, because what happens for COVID-19 will also happen for influenza. In this country, we lose 10 to 20,000 people from influenza every single year. And those numbers can be reduced also if we go along these principles. That's all I'm going to give you, because I know we're pretty much out of time. If we have one or two questions, I'm happy to take a few. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chidi. Well, if you have any question, virtually you can raise your hands up, and then you can ask for the co-hoster to release your microphone, and then you can ask the question. Anyone else? Please, I'm going to ask the hoster to help me because I just cannot see anyone exactly at the same time. Any question? Raise your hand.
Okay. Yeah, I think Dr. Anker probably did such a good job that there are no questions left. That's very good work.
Wow. Anyone? If anyone have some question or have one question, please.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I will.
My question, of course, would be why the NHS is not using this.
Oh, that's a very good question.
If we know that vitamin D is doing such a good job, why is there so little about this in the NHS?
Thank you.
We know that people in nursing homes have got a higher rate of infection complications because they are indoors, and we prescribe them some calcium and vitamin D, but why is this message not being used by the NHS then?
Yeah, okay, so that's a great question. I was privileged to be able to give evidence to both a government think tank and the opposition think tank that was set up by Sir Keir Starmer. And I do remember when I was giving evidence about vitamin D, I must say there was a lot of pushback to this idea, because they were saying, well, it can't be that simple. I mean, surely it must be something to do. So this was about the inequalities of race, by the way. That's the reason for that group. But they were saying, well, it must be about racism, it must be about poverty. Very few people were looking at the idea of vitamin D. I think at the time, that was back in May, they were thinking, oh, this is too simple an idea. We don't want that. But now the evidence is starting to emerge. These studies are coming out. There are about 100, 150 different studies which confirm that vitamin D is important. We can only hope and pray that the government starts to listen.
Mm.
And for those of you who may have questions you don't want to ask in front of everybody, you can get me on my email here or on Instagram or Twitter. Feel free to contact me.
Dr. Chidi?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just wondering, have you heard, well, I'm not sure how can I say in proper English, but in Brazil, there's a medicine called chloroquine. I'm not sure if you heard about
chloroquine, yes.
What do you think about this? And because in some doctors start to recommend this medicine as like a release the treatment just to help. Of course, doesn't it's not really affected like to sort out the problem. But what do you think about this, Doctor?
This drug it became kind of front page news when Donald Trump started to promote it as well. So first of all, and this is a very important factor, even though Donald Trump and other people are saying chloroquine may help, the drug is not chloroquine. Chloroquine is very toxic and it will cause you to go blind. The drug that we use for people who have autoimmune problems is hydroxychloroquine. So that drug, hydroxychloroquine, was trialed and tested to see if it made any difference to the outcomes of coronavirus or COVID-19. It didn't have any real effect, and it still caused lots of side effects. But my point is this: look, if you can get rid of 99.2% of the diseases by eliminating the underlying disease, and we know we can do that, plus making sure your vitamin D levels are high, why would you go for a toxic drug? So first of all, I would say, do not take hydroxychloroquine, and certainly not chloroquine, in the hope that you're going to eliminate COVID-19. And by the way, something that we haven't had time to get onto, but I guess Dr. Anker did mention, today, the virus is not the same as it was back in March. I think most people can see that. You know, I've been working in the A&E department at least once or twice a week ever since March. And in March, yeah, we were getting lots of people coming in with complications of COVID-19, going to ITU. Now we're seeing hardly any. The ITU places are pretty much empty where I am. So even though infection rates are rising, deaths are not rising. And that's another thing that the government needs to start addressing, because, you know, we're locking down the whole country. Is the virus the same? All coronaviruses mutate. We know that. So I'm just not, I don't understand why these top scientists that are giving evidence to the government are not advising them that, well, possibly this virus has mutated and it's not as lethal as it was. Because even today, when it's going into nursing homes to very vulnerable people, people are not being killed in nursing homes by COVID-19 anymore. But that's another matter.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Chidi. Any question, or even like the last question? If the time is a little bit like we run out of time, but I think we have time to more.
It's on the participants list, Pastor Fabrizio.
Oh, sorry, Pastor James, can you just repeat? Sorry, I had a crack in my line here.
There are a few questions on the participants list you might like to take.
Okay.
That's on the chat, chatting box.
Oh, okay, yes. There is like what the Maria asked, what dose of vitamin D is best to take?
What? Sorry?
What dose?
What dose of vitamin D?
Yeah, that's a good question. So normally we used to give vitamin D in levels of around 400 to 1000. That's for bone health. But we're now realizing that that's not sufficient. So we don't know the correct dose, but we know it has to be somewhere between 2000 and 5000 for an optimal dose. Usually people say it's around 4000 units per day. But yeah, the evidence is not, because even, look, if I take 4000 units and somebody who's half my size takes 4000 units, we're not going to have the same blood level. So it's very difficult to judge. But somewhere between 2000 and 5000 international units per day is seen to be the sweet spot for people who don't actually have any illness. If you have an illness like an autoimmune disease or cancer, we tend to recommend you have higher.
Okay, thank you. I think there is no more question. I'm gonna give like the last chance.
No, Pastor Fabrizio, there are a number of questions. They're on the participants list. There's Verita Brian, Claudette B, and Honor.
Oh, okay. Can I help me, Pastor James, please?
So perhaps Verita Brian, if you could put your question.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you both, Dr. Anker and Dr. Chidi. My question is about the link between vitamin D3 and vitamin K2. Some recommend that both should be taken together. Is that correct?
Yeah, so vitamin K2 is just to prevent you absorbing much calcium and it being deposited in your arteries. So it's usually not necessary. All I would say is if you are taking a high dose of vitamin D3, you do not need to take any calcium supplementation. As doctors, we often give low dose vitamin D plus calcium, 400 international units, 1000 units plus calcium. When you're taking the higher dose, you need no calcium because actually vitamin D is a steroid. It's kind of like a hormone. It tells the cells to absorb more calcium as well as doing so many other different things. So I don't normally recommend people having to take K2.
Okay, thank you. The next one is Claudette B. Can you ask your question, please?
Yeah. Hi, Dr. Chidi. I've been diagnosed as having low vitamin D. So I've been taking 20,000 IU every 2 weeks. Is that too much?
No, it's not too much. 20,000 is for people who have disease or who are very, very low. That's just the normal dose that you would take initially. Some GPs will give you, 50,000 to 70,000 a week, 20,000 a day. That's absolutely fine. You're not going to overdose on 20,000 units.
Okay. It wasn't by the GP. It was just they told me to take some, so I've taken that. So that's fine.
Yeah, no, it's not too high.
Okay, brilliant.
I understand if you are severely deficient and you just start with low doses, it will take up to half a year until your levels come up. So if you are severely deficient, you need a high loading dose to get the level up, and then you switch over to a lower maintenance dose. So in the beginning, hospital doctors for bone disease and all that, they give you a high dose. And for dark-skinned people with low levels, it's probably a good idea to start for 6 weeks with a higher dose before you switch to maintenance dose.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's like a sister called like Honor 10 Light. Please go ahead.
Hello. Hi, it's Mary. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Mary. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Dr. Chidi. Yeah, just asking, would it be a wise thing for people to just go to the GP and check their levels before they start, just take? Hi, it's Mary. Hello.
Okay, I've understood that. Should you go to your GP first to check your levels? It's always good to start with your GP, but I would hazard a guess. Excuse me. I would hazard a guess that just about all of us, especially if we're dark skinned and we live in Great Britain, we're going to have low doses of vitamin D or low levels of vitamin D. There's nothing wrong in starting at least 1,000, 2,000 units, but yeah, it would be good to check with your GP first, but sometimes it's difficult to get GP appointments now. So I wouldn't wait in order to start a dose such as 1,000 or 2,000 units.
Okay, thank you very much.
Seeing your GP about it could be tricky because a few years ago, when it became very fashionable to have your vitamin D checked, the hospital laboratories were overwhelmed, and basically they took the little tick box for vitamin D off the tick list of the formulary for GPs, and we were not even allowed to ask for it. Yeah, so the assumption in this country is that 60% of all people are vitamin D deficient and 80% of all dark-skinned people are vitamin D deficient. So if in doubt, simply go and start with the supplements.
Great, thank you very much, Doctor. We have the last hand left here, Ines Holgate. You can ask your question. Can you mute her, please? Ines Holgate.
The joys of technology.
Okay, anyone? Oh, I think yes. Now.
Yes, I'm here.
Hello.
I have diabetes. I have diabetic and I don't know what to do because every time I go back to have a checkup, they said it's not very good. You know, my blood sugar is not very good. And I try to cut down on sweets and things like that.
Try to
I
cut
don't
down.
know.
Good, that's very good. Look, I think I won't give you a personal consultation here, but you can contact me either through email or through your parcel. You'll have my mobile number as well. I'm happy to talk to you anytime. Okay, there's always something that can be done for diabetes. Most, especially type 2 diabetes, is reversible. So please feel free to get in contact.
Okay, I probably there's like 2 more questions. One is like Mike. Can release your microphone? You can ask the question. Mike and Mojo Floyd.
Hi, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. My wife saw on, I think it was on 3ABN, they recommended N-acetylcysteine as a way to boost your immune system. Have you heard of that?
NAC.
NAC,
Yeah.
I think it's called.
I've heard of it. As I say, look, the best way to boost your immune system is the natural way, to eat healthily, to get out in the sunshine, get exercise. These drugs, every drug you take, and it's a drug, it will have a side effect, and there's no way you can avoid that. So rather than taking drugs, I would take the natural route. Vitamin D is pretty much the only vitamin or supplement I'm going to recommend to boost your immune system. There are other foods you can eat to boost your immune system. There are spices you can eat, cardamom, turmeric, garlic, all of these things. I mean, these will boost your immune system as well. But that doesn't mean that you will avoid getting a virus because of it. We are all still, I don't know, Dr. Anker, you okay?
Yes, probably some infection.
Right, okay, well, good that we're far away then. No, rather than taking a drug, which will have side effects, the best thing to do is to do it naturally and use your food, the spices, that supplement of vitamin D, and getting exercise.
Okay, we have, unfortunately, the time was literally a really nice opportunity to have many questions, but unfortunately our time is gone. I have just the last question, and I'm going to ask Dr. Chidi to share in like your details, because some people are asking about your contact details. While Dr. Chidi is going to share your contact details, I'm going to ask the question, someone asking, what of zinc tablets? Give me 1 second. What of zinc tablets in prevention of COVID-19?
Yes, I'm sure Dr. Anker has heard of lots of different things that have been promoted to help us avoid COVID-19. I can't speak against zinc, but all I know is that supplementation on its own is not going to protect you from getting the disease. The only one we know that has a big impact on your immune system is vitamin D. Yes, you must have your zinc levels up, your magnesium, manganese levels, but most of that you can find in your diet. Okay, so don't worry about getting other supplementations. Many of them have been shown not to be very effective. The only one we know, and the World Health Organization has published many, many studies on supplementation, the one that we know works very well, even before COVID-19, is vitamin D3. I don't know what Dr. Anker would like to say about that.
Well, supplementations have really only been shown to be effective if you had a deficiency before. If you are deficient in magnesium, yes, giving you magnesium and you might not get those leg cramps anymore. But just taking excess levels of extra artificial supplements might not solve your problem or give you some negative effects. It's always healthier to get your magnesium from your nuts and whatever, your potassium from your bananas and your zinc, it's nuts, seeds, fruit, vegetables. A healthy diet is always better. And also many of the supplemented minerals or the vitamins are not working in isolation. A tomato, for example, has got vitamin A, but also about 10,000 other molecules in it. And we do not know how many of these other substances are needed to make the vitamin A work properly. So eating junk food and then popping in some vitamin pills is not the same as eating healthily. Yeah, because there might be other substances in the nuts, seeds, and vegetables that are making these substances work better. In isolation, supplements can be even toxic. Yes, vitamin A can be toxic if you take too much of it. And in natural food, the balance between the electrolytes, the minerals, the vitamins, the fiber is always in the best balance. Yeah, the more artificial things are, if they come out of pots and little jars, it's never as good as the natural way, in my opinion. Supplements are only good when you are deficient, and unfortunately, because of our modern indoor lifestyle, nearly everybody has got vitamin D deficiency, even the white people. So in these days, sunshine, but from October to March, the sun levels are too low even for white people. So it's a good idea to take vitamin D supplements. That's the only one I recommend.
There you go.
Oh, okay.
So when it comes to vitamin D, all lives matter. That's what you're saying.
Okay. Well,
some of you get okay, fair enough.
Okay. I just want to say a big Dankeschön for Dr. Anko and a big thank you for Dr. Chidi. It was a literally amazing presentation. Were extremely useful and relevant for us. I just want to say really, really big thank you. And Dankeschön for Dr. Anko as well. All the best.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
There's no need standing up for the right, unless you gotta stand up against the wrong. Tell me you got to love the light. The Bible tells you you got to let the love of God come in. Well, got to do right. Say it won't be long. It won't be long. Now let me tell you that it's easy to hate your enemies and understand. It's easy to love your friends. Tell you not to love a lie. The Bible tells you you got to let the love of God come in. Well, got to do right. 'Cause it won't be long. It won't be long. Don't you wanna love them better? Don't you wanna love them more? Can't you hear the Savior knocking? He's knocking at your door.
Don't you wanna make
haste to meet your maker? Before you got to deal with the undertaker, he will take you right now if you were willing. Don't you know the Bible is fulfilling? Got to do right. It won't be long. It won't be long.
You got to do right. Oh, live a life. You got to do right. Oh, live a life. You got to do right. Oh, live a life. You got to do right. Oh, live a life. You got to do right. Oh, live a life.
We've got to do right. Oh, live a life. We've got to do right. Oh, live a life. We've got to do right. Oh, live a life. We've got to do right. Oh, live a life. We've got to do right. Oh, live a life. We've got to do right.
Right, once again, good afternoon, everyone. And we are now going to have Sister Edith Nube Samambwa. She's going to talk about mental health, especially during this time. As we all know that we have been affected by this pandemic one way or another mentally. Perhaps some of us, we've been depressed since the start of this pandemic. So We are all blessed to have Sister Edith to talk about mental health during this pandemic. And Sister Edith has a master's degree in public health. She is a member of West Bletchley Church in Milton Keynes, and she is also a mental health therapist. And she was the health ministry's director for the Irish Mission for 8 years. And she is also the founder and manager of Curshley Community Centre, a Centre of Hope at Dublin Ranelagh Church. And Sister Edith enjoys reading, she enjoys traveling and gardening and music. And so, friends, without much ado, we're going to give the time to Sister Edith. Sister Edith, over to you.
Right, awesome. Thank you so much, Brother Rio, and thank you to everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you all this afternoon. I've had a bit of a marathon day. I'm just coming, actually, I just arrived. I was talking to Pastor James, and it's so funny because, you know, when they say you must always be careful what you say, and because life and death is in the power of the tongue. So I'm coming from Hackney Church, where we were recording some videos for women's ministries for the GC for the 25th anniversary of women's ministries. So I was there this morning and left London just after 2, maybe 2:30, and then drove back. I live just outside Bedford, in Bedfordshire. And I was talking to Pastor James when I was on the M1, and I was telling him I'm going to make it, but the M1 is so unpredictable. There could be something, and for sure, just after I finished speaking to him, we were put to a grounding halt, and I was on the M1, I think, not moving for about 10 minutes. So I was like, you know, you should always watch your mouth because you never know, because our mouths have so much power. But thankfully, I eventually made it home just at 4:28. I walked into my house. So I'm grateful that I can be here to share with you guys. And I know it's been a long day for everybody. Myself included, as you've just heard. And for those of you that have been listening, I'm very sorry that I missed everything else that has been going on today. I would have really liked to be here for the rest of the presentations. So, which is a shame. I'm hopefully going to watch them on YouTube later on. And my presentation is not going to be long because I know we've had a long day. So feel free to walk around, feel free to stand up and, you know, stretch if you need to do that, because it will help you, I suppose, in getting to, you know, to pay attention, and so that you can actually hear what I am going to be talking about. Now, I have a presentation that I'm going to share, and I've just realized that I have not saved it to my OneDrive or Google Drive. And so, but I'm just going to take a second to do that, if you just excuse me. But as Elder Rio was talking about how we have to be, you know, how our mind and our mental health has been affected by everything that's been going on. I just want to share a story. So while I'm trying to do that, I'm going to share a story, my story of this pandemic. So in mid-March, just before the lockdown, I woke up on a Monday morning and I was feeling pretty okay. My temperature had gone down a tiny bit, and I had gone up a tiny bit, so it was like 35 degrees, but I was feeling fine, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with me besides that. Now, I have a thermostat that I keep beside my bed, and I usually, you know, occasionally I would use it. So at this moment, I'm like thinking, okay, my temperature is 30, it was actually about 37. So I'm thinking, okay, 37 is not bad. I'm feeling okay. I went to a conference, a prayer conference that evening. It was a Monday. I went to a prayer conference in London, and where there were about 4,000 or more people. Right. So this is me, unbeknown to me, thinking that everything is fine. So I go to this prayer conference and everything's fantastic. We're praying, we're singing. And obviously at this point, we hadn't really started social distancing that much. But as I'm sitting there in the middle of this evening service, I start to get shaky. I'm feeling shivers. I'm feeling hot and cold. And I'm thinking, okay, this doesn't feel good. And I'm literally wondering if I have this virus, because remember at this time, this is mid-March, early March. I'm not, at this time, I'm not actually aware of how it even starts, whether you're going to have warning signs and so on. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I hope I'm not sick. I hope I'm not sick, because you're in a church service and you're singing, you're rubbing shoulders with people, you're talking to people. I had gone there with a friend, and I'm thinking, wow, okay, if I'm sick, I'm going to be spreading this a lot, because I know how these things can work. So as I drive home, I'm driving home and I start to really feel ill. So I had gone with a friend of mine. I said to her, please call me. She was driving separately. I said, I would like you to call me because I just want to sleep. I just feel like I need to sleep. I can't drive anymore, and I just want to park my car. And I know that's not a good thing for me to do, but I'm really feeling tired. So she's like, okay, fine, I'll talk you through the drive. So I drive about nearly 2 hours and I get home. And by the time I get home, all I want to do is sleep. And I just fall into bed. When I wake up in the morning, Tuesday morning, I have a terrible headache. My temperature is high and I am just having shaking. I'm shaking. I've got malaria-like symptoms. Now, I've never had malaria, but I know what malaria is supposed to feel like. So I'm listening to my body and thinking, I know I have this virus. And I'm thinking of all the people that I interacted with the night before. And in fact, that whole weekend, because this had been a prayer conference from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And I had been interacting with people for those 4 days where I was totally asymptomatic until the very last night. And I immediately knew I'd probably spread this to many people. Cutting a long story short, I spent the next 6 weeks ill. I was one of the unfortunate people and who got it quite badly, because I had the whole lot. I had nearly every symptom except the cough. I didn't have the cough until near the end when I'd exert myself. Everything else I had, everything, the muscle pain, the aches, the runny tummy, everything. I lost my sense of smell, my sense of taste. And because at that time we're still trying to figure it out, I actually wasn't aware that I had lost my sense of taste until it came back. And I was like, oh, I can smell things suddenly. I can smell things. Whereas before, for like 6 whole weeks, I was unable to smell things. So what did I do? I stayed at home. I live alone. I stayed at home. I self-isolated straight away from the Tuesday. And I literally was in isolation for 6 weeks. Now, I'm giving you guys this as a backdrop to what we're going to talk about. Because in those 6 weeks, I saw literally nobody. I was home alone, and not in the Home Alone Christmas movie type of way where you was having an adventure. I was home alone, nursing myself, trying to recover, trying to focus on being positive, trying to not see all the headlines and all the people that were dying, hearing all the stories of people that I knew that were passing away, and just laying in my bed. Most of the time, I'd go for a walk up and down my stairs because you couldn't get out, because my temperature kept changing. There were weeks when I thought I was fine, and I thought, okay, I could work. So I was working from home. And then 2 days later on a Friday, I'd have this horrible wave. And at some point I thought, okay, I need to ring the ambulance. And they told me, okay, you need to come in. And I changed my mind and I decided, I think I'm going to fight this on my own. And so I was doing all those concoctions and all that stuff. And all I wanted to do was be home with my family. All I wanted to do was be home with my mother. And I just didn't want to be in that situation at all. And having to work through that, someone was asking me the other day, this month, and saying, what did you learn from that experience? Because they were talking about how 2020 has been so bad, and lockdown and the whole COVID thing has been terrible. And I was saying to them, well, that may be the truth, but I've learned something from it. And they said to me, what did you learn? I said, well, I learned to survive on my own. I learned what it takes to have the mindset to go through an experience where there's nobody else but you and God. And you have to work through that, where you are fighting the illness, fighting the thoughts in your mind, fighting the news, fighting what's been said around you, hearing what people are saying, all the bad stuff that people can possibly be saying, all the statistics, and making a decision that you're going to live. and that you're not going to die. And it was a decision that I made, especially the night before, when I thought maybe I need to go in because my chest, I could feel numbness on my face. I was so out of breath just doing something. I would do something for 30 minutes and I'd be knocked out for like 3 hours. I would sleep, literally just be totally knocked out. And I just thought to myself, okay, knowing my physics, knowing my physiology, I said, right, obviously I'm not getting enough oxygen. Something's not happening. I should be having more blood flow to the lips and to my face. It's not going there. What do I need to do? And of course I did some things. And as I tell people, don't do what I did, because I had some knowledge of what I could possibly do from a physiotherapy point of view, from even just natural remedies and stuff like that. Not everyone will know those things, and don't make those assumptions that, okay, I'm going to be fine. But I want to share with you what I believe will help us should we have to go through this, or even right now as we have gone through this. I'm aware that many of us have lost friends, we've lost loved ones, we're grieving this, and sometimes it was, and maybe it was not because of COVID itself. It could have been because they passed on for some other reason, but that is now being compounded by all the loss that we've experienced as an entire nation and as a world. We're experiencing a lot of loss, and we're grieving that. So I'm quite aware that there may be many of us here were grieving the loss of loved ones who died because of COVID or because of some other illness. But as part of this whole pandemic, where death is just all around us, it is even more impactful for us, because we see this, it's not that it's a year that's kind of different in that regard. So we need to be aware of our pain. We need to be aware of the fact that we are losing something, or we've lost something. And the biggest thing that we've lost is the sense of freedom. And I tell people that the biggest issue that I had in that 6 weeks, almost 8 weeks, was the sense of being in a prison and isolation. I imagine what it must be like for people who are in an isolated prison cell because of something that they've done. It's still not a nice thing. And we've had that loss. We've lost our freedoms in big ways, and we're now having to live with that. I met a friend when I was at Hackney Church this afternoon, and now some of you may know her. We haven't seen each other for years, and we were having to think, should we hug? What are we going to do? We're not in each other's bubbles and stuff like that. And those things are going to impact us, and they're going to impact us on a daily basis. So it's so important for us to be watching what we're doing, and our mind is such an important thing. So what are we doing? And I just want to share, because you've heard my experience. If you look at the picture in the back, that picture is of me and my friends during the time, the lockdown time, probably around June, July. We would get together on a Saturday evening. Most of my friends are all over the world. And because I lived in Ireland for a long time, most of my friends are still in Ireland. So we would get together on a Saturday evening after church, and we would Zoom together and we would chat about things. We would talk about life. And it was so important, particularly for me, and maybe for some of them, because many of them were also in isolation or not seeing people, because this is the time of the height of the lockdown in May, I think. None of us were, except for the girls that are married, they were with family. But the majority of us were like, okay, we need to stay connected. I think this is so important, especially if you should fall ill. One of the things that I did was I reached out to people, and I know many of us are afraid to do this. We want people to just expect people to reach out to us and say, hey, are you okay? Do you need help? Do you need support? Do you want me to go do your shopping? But what I find is that because we're all going through stuff, sometimes people will not know what you're going through, and they're not necessarily going to be there for you in the way that you want them to be. So it's worth your while, I believe, to let your closest friends know, guys, this is what I'm going through. I need you to call me. I need you to, and I had a cousin who was in California. Patricia would ring me every day, and she'd make sure I walk. She's like, Edith, you can't sleep. You need to walk. You need to do this. Sometimes she'd annoy me out of my sleep, but she kept me going. And that connection is so important. Reach out to people and ask for help. That social support is key. And we know from a medical point of view that social support is important for our immune system, right? When you are healing with other people around you, it improves your immune system. You're better able to fight disease than when you're on your own. And for those of us who may not be sick, we're able to do things, it's so important for us to reach out to those who are shielding, living alone, or who are ill. It's so easy for us to become self-focused. Self-preservation is so important right now. So I don't want to be hugging people. I don't want to be interacting with people that much, especially if they're not in my bubble, etc., etc. Well, you can imagine for those people who cannot be in bubbles, because we live in a country, particularly, I know even where you are, there are a lot of people who have come from different parts of the world. They may not have a bubble. They may be on their own, and it may be difficult for them to actually have that. So it's such an important thing for us to be aware of that. Have your antennas out for people who may need you, because definitely two are better than one in all this. It's so important for us to stay connected. Next thing that is so important, at some point, I started having this sense that I needed to stop watching the news. I needed to stop watching the news. It was so important for me because every single day, especially in April, they would show you all the spike, just like what's happening now. You'd see all the number of people that have died. It was almost like a game, like a video game. How many people have died today? How many people? And there was almost an anticipation that you'd get more people dying. That proves that this virus is actually lethal, right? And if the numbers go down because of the weekend, everyone's like, oh, actually, we know that it's because it's the weekend. Almost like we want this to happen. I remember making a decision that I was not going to look at the news anymore, that I was not going to be looking at the numbers and the statistics and trying to figure out what are the odds. Now, as a public health practitioner, I'm looking at all this and I'm doing my R numbers and looking at the ratios and stuff like that. Okay, look at the rate of transmission, how fast is it, what's going to happen? So I'm remembering my statistics, and it's no good, because I know that the more you feed yourself with that negativity and the negative thoughts and what's happening on the news, on the internet, on the radio, you are going to fill your brain with life-changing information that is changing your life in a negative way. Because remembering that life and death in the power of the tongue, not just our tongues, but the tongues of the people around us. So if you are listening to people, the news people who are saying, well, 10,000 people are going to die, and you agree to that, and you say, oh yeah, 10,000 people are going to die. What you're doing is you're shifting things. And I know this is spiritual, but it's true. Psychologists call it self-fulfilling prophecy. We may call it whatever. But what I do know is that we give agreement to what people are speaking to happen on earth by what we agree, right? So if someone says, you're going to die, and you've heard of stories where people are told, you're going to die on day one, and the person believing it actually dies on that day, not because they were sick, but because they started allowing their body to actually agree with that statement. And I want to believe that I know there's limits to that, but at the same time, it's such an important thing. So I decided the best chance of me to live was to make sure that my brain had a sense of, no, I'm alive, I'm going to live, and give my brain that power. Life and death is definitely in my tongue, and God has promised us perfect peace if we keep our minds stayed on Him. He said, we'll not be afraid of evil tidings because we have our mind stayed on Him. If you read Psalms 112, verse 7, it says He is not afraid of evil tidings because His eyes are fixed on the Lord. So we don't want to be amongst those people that are making conspiracy theories. This is so important, especially for us Adventist people. I really believe this, and I'm saying this, and no offense to anyone. Yes, it's 5G, could be 5G, could be the Chinese did it. It could be whatever it is that we believe, right? Or what someone is saying out there. Do those theories help you? Do those theories help you to maintain your well-being, your mental well-being? If you're terrified all the time, and people are like plying all this out there on the internet as a way of fear-mongering, to be honest, you're going to be terrified. If you know it's 5G, even if you don't know it's 5G, if the Chinese did it or didn't do it, the point is that going to help you, especially in maintaining your well-being. So we can be saying all these things and spreading it. Yes, it's just the end of the world. Jesus is coming soon. Is it the mark of the beast? All this stuff. I wouldn't unite with conspiracy theorists because I know what God said about the end of the world. All sorts of things are going to be happening for sure. And yet He says, keep your eyes on what is important. So don't focus on what you can't control. I may not be able to control politics in this world. I definitely can't do that. Focus on what you can control. And what you can control is your mind. And what you can control is definitely your mouth. You can decide what you speak. And I want to say this to us. we got all the emails, we got all the messages not to be spreading things on WhatsApp and stuff like that, because I know some of us feel obliged to do that. You know, you will be helping somebody else if you're speaking positive, life encouraging messages and sharing positive things about how to make it, than spreading conspiracy theories. It's not helping your mind, and it's not helping somebody else. You know, and as we know, good things happen to us all over the world on a daily basis. The news will never report it. I get my news like, in fact, if you can give up on the news, you'll be doing yourself a favor. If you can give up on the news completely, you'll be doing yourself a favor, because things will still happen. I mean, there's some things which are essentials, I guess. I got my news on New York Times briefing. Comes on my phone in the morning, and I don't read it until I've done everything else that I need to do. And really, if you are really like a news kind of person, I recommend something like that, a summary of what's happened around the world. They'll tell you, okay, what Boris Johnson's done, what's happening in Russia, what's happening with climate change, and they'll give you some recipes or something funny. And I would probably peruse through that, see if there's anything major that has happened. There's nothing as major as the second coming of Christ. And God said to us, when it happens, we're all going to see it. And the most important thing is that we be ready. So there's nothing else that's going to happen out there. Maybe there was an earthquake. I actually missed that there was an earthquake in Leighton Buzzard the other week. I heard about it afterwards. I said, oh, really? There was an earthquake? Really? When? How did it happen? What happened? So I'm hearing stories. I'm like, okay, maybe I do need to read a bit of local news as well. But I'm just saying this for us to really sanitize our mind, focus on what you can control. You're not going to control what's on the news. You're not going to be able to control what's happening with people. You're not going to be controlling what the government hasn't or hasn't done, and vaccines or no vaccines. You're not going to be able to control that per se. But what you can control is how you create this world for yourself, where every thought is taken into captivity. Every single thought is taken into captivity. When you start hearing conspiracy people coming to you, sending you stuff. I had to tell one of my in-laws, I said, you know what? I actually don't appreciate you sending all this stuff, because we know how the mark of the beast is not on a microchip. So if you as an Adventist are sending me this stuff and telling me this, I don't want to hear it. And sometimes you have to be stern with people to explain, because it's so important that you guard your mind. In fact, the Bible says, guard your heart with all diligence. Guard your heart with all diligence. Your heart is your mind, your emotions, your thoughts, right? Your feelings. Guard your heart with all diligence. For out of it are the issues of life. Life and death is with you. And your heart guarding this, what's coming in, what's coming out of your mouth to affect your life and also affect the lives of others. What's also coming out of other people's mouths? Yes, they can say what they want to say. You don't let them build a nest over your head, right? The birds can do whatever. They'll fly over you, but it doesn't matter. So watch that. And I want to affirm this. This is so important. The power of affirming God's promises in our lives. So at some point, as I'm telling you my story, I think sometimes it's best to tell stories when you illustrate things by your own examples, and people can remember it better. So at some point, I'm hearing all this. What's going on here? I'm feeling this pain. I'm hearing the news, and I'm hearing what people are saying and what's happening in the world. I remember reading a story about a physician. He was one of the first doctors to pass away. And he was a Sudanese doctor. The story went like this. He had been sick. He thought he was getting better. And then he got sick again. The family knew that it was time. And so they rang the ambulance. And that was the last the man was seen off, right? I'm thinking, this is a horrible story. Like, it was like this doom, already knowing that it's time to go in and it's time for the end. And I remember just thinking, hell no, that's not going to happen. Excuse me. But I'm not going to have that happen to me. I'm not going in and not coming back. So I started finding the word. I started finding verses in the word that would bring life, and started proclaiming life to myself. And like, Lord, you said you send your healings. They cried out unto you, and you sent your healing, and you sent your word, and you healed them. So I had to find the word, because God's already sent it. I had to find the word that brings healing to me. Jeremiah 30 says, I will heal you. I'll heal your wounds. Isaiah 53 verse 5, the classic one. And the other verses attached to that one. Psalm 30 verse 2. I said, God, I would repeat this. I said, even if it's the one verse I know, it's my favorite one is Psalms 102 verse 20. I said, if it's the one in Isaiah 53, even if it's the one I know, I would say that over and over and over again, every single day. I will say it. I am healed. I am healed. I am healed. I shall live and not die. I shall live and not die and see my family in the land of the living. I shall live and not die and see my family and go to Zimbabwe, visit my family. I shall live and not die. I proclaim that every single day, every minute that I had. And this is one other thing, taking into captivity every thought, right? Because we're eliminating those things that fight against our mind and fight against the feeling, the knowledge of life. And we must eliminate those things and say, you're not coming into my space. So we're doing that with the news. We're doing that with people. But you're speaking now. You need to replace that with the word of God. So I'm speaking life into myself. I'm speaking life into my body. And if my friends were coming to me saying, I'm sick, I'm like, you know what? This is the word. Claim this word, because God is going to heal. And of course, you're going to do the physical things. I know you've been talking about vitamin D and all that stuff. You want to do all that as well. But the power to maintain our immune system with the word and with our mind is so real. And it is a psychological and medical fact. That's why doctors will not operate on people who think they're going to die at the operating table, because they will. Because your blood pressure is going to be affected by that. Your sugar levels are going to be affected by how you feel. If you're stressed, your cortisol levels will go all over the place. That's going to affect your blood pressure. It's going to affect how your blood clots, all that stuff, right? And that's real. So our hormones are not independent of our thinking. Our hormones are affected by how we think. And so it's important that we give our bodies the best fighting chance. And we do that by minding our mind. And last but not least, I just want to encourage you, walk where the sunshine is. It's going to be hard if you've talked about vitamin D, and that's important. You know, we want to walk where the sunshine is. Merry heart doeth good like medicine. You know, things may happen. Someone said the difference between an optimist and a pessimist is that, you know, the same things may happen to them, but the optimist has a good time along the way, right? So you and I can be that person that whatever may be happening around us, we can have a better time than the person. And I'm not saying this to trivialize when we have lost someone or, you know, when we have life-threatening disease. But what I'm saying is that as we're experiencing the storm of COVID and the lockdown, what's going to be happening around us, we want to make sure that we keep that merriness in our heart, watching what we watch, listening to, proactively seeking out joy and laughter. So that means I might want to spend on a Saturday night or on a Sunday afternoon, instead of watching some morbid soap opera or whatever, I want to be listening to joyful music. I'm going to be watching a comedy, something that makes me laugh. And I want to seek the sun wherever possible, because we need the vitamin D3, especially in winter. But I'm also going to seek it where possible in other places. What do I mean by seek the sun? Seek those places where there's joy. Seek the places on the internet where there's joy. Seek the places on Facebook where there's joy. You're going to be finding so much negativity right now with everything that's going on in America. You know, everything that's going on elsewhere, we're going to be seeing a flood of these things. But we want to seek the sun, find the sunshine. It is all around us if we look, and most importantly, it's within us. And, you know, this is a song by Monty Python. Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the light side of life. Some of you may be too young to know who Monty Python is. If life seems jolly rotten, there's something you've forgotten. And that's to laugh and smile and dance and sing. When you're feeling in the dumps, don't be silly chumps. Just purse your lips and whistle. That's the thing. Always look on the bright side of life. And I can assure you that people may think you're a little nuts, because they're like, well, why is she smiling when all around you, the world seems to be crumbling and everything is happening? But there's one thing I know for sure, is that the one thing I ask the Lord, I always say to the Lord, I want to have that steadfastness of hope, that knowledge that no matter what happens, no matter who's in my life, no matter what's happened, and I believe this, even my own experience of having self-isolated and being on my own that time, I've always known that I've known through trials and going through pain and so on in my life, that the biggest lesson that each one of us can learn is that when everything all around us is sinking sand, God is there for us. And it's often in those times when we're by ourselves, or when things are not happening, or when the world is crumbling, when everyone else has deserted us, that is the time. I was sharing with a friend, there's a song I used to sing a long time ago in a group that I sang with some young people way back home. There was a song we sang, Lean on Me, when you have nowhere to stand. And at the end of the chorus, it says, when you've come to the place that I'm all you have, and you find I'm all you need. And I feel like at this point in life, we're all getting to that space when we find that all we have is God, and we find that all we need is Him. And that's what I believe God is doing in all of our lives. And that's what God did for me this year. And He said, you know what, you're not on your own. And when you find that when you've come to the place that all you have and you find all you need. And I think there's no greater joy for a Christian to get to a place where they realize that, you know what, everything may fade away, but God is still with me. And I know this is what happened with Martin Luther when they were at those stakes. Nobody else was there with them. When they were being burned at the stake, when all those people were being martyred, nobody else was there except God. And I really believe this pandemic has come to challenge us, has come to prove to us, because nothing comes to, as Dr. Chidi always says, everything comes for us, doesn't come to us. And I really believe that of the entire world, because I know God loves everyone. And everyone in this entire world is being proved and being encouraged and being drawn to God if they see this in the right way. And if we're here to help other people see it in the right way, that everything is happening for our good, ultimately, no matter what the devil's planned, whoever planned it, whoever created this virus or didn't create it, whoever ate the meat they shouldn't have eaten, it does not matter. What happens is that God has created and this has allowed this situation to help the world and to prepare us for the final time when sometimes we will be on our own and everyone else will be gone. I really believe that all these things are going to help us. And while we're at it, let's give back to others, acts of service. Let's go shopping for other people. We know all those practical things. They're going to help you feel good. Take care of yourself. Eat well anyway, not just because you want to protect yourself from COVID. Eat well. Make sure your gut health, I'm not sure what we shared earlier on, but gut health is so important for serotonin production, for how well we feel, for resilience, because as your body is healthy and happy, your brain's going to be healthy and happy too. Exercise. Sugar and caffeine, they basically work the opposite of what you want. They may feel good, and when you're eating them, it tastes good when you're having them, but they're working to counteract what you want, which is resilience, and to be able to manage what you're going through. Sleep, very important. And of course, music will heal you. I'll stop here. And I know that there may be some questions. And I know sometimes when I do these presentations, I sound like I drive a hard bargain. And I don't want to do that, because I really believe that what God is doing, I don't want you to feel that you can't have, your moments of weakness. You can't cry. I cried a lot. I cried for my mother. I wanted to be home with her. I don't want you to feel that you cannot grieve, or that you're not allowed to do that. But what I do want to encourage us and to share with us is the fact that, really, truly speaking, that God did not allow anything to happen to us that's going to break our minds. And I know from having experienced what I experienced in March, April, May, and as we continue to experience this, that the greatest battle that we have at this point is in our heads. This is where the battle is happening. The armor that we need to wear is to protect our mind from discouragement, from fear, especially fear, and to protect our minds from worry, and to make ourselves sick with anxiety, because we can. We need to ask God to help us to do that, because this is where the battle is being fought, in our mental wellness, in our emotional health. Because without emotional health, you can lose a finger, you can lose a limb, and you'll be happy and you can carry on. But when you do not have your mind, and that's why the Bible says that you keep him in sound mind, you shall have sound mind. And one of my favorite verses, which I'm going to end with, is this: God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of love, and of a sound mind, and of courage to face whatever storm is going to be coming our way, and to endure till the end. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you, appreciate the time and me being able to share with you. And I'm going to hand it back over to the chairperson.
Right. Amen to that, Sister Ida. Thank you so much, first of all, for sharing your experience, what it was like to have COVID and what you went through and how you managed to get out of that situation. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you also for sharing those important points regarding coping during this pandemic, like staying connected, focusing, feeding our minds with the promises from the Lord, and also you mentioned about the importance of focusing on what we can control, and the last is to walk where the sunshine is. I like that, I like that. So thank you so much for sharing. Due to time restrictions, we're gonna entertain only 2 questions. So you can either raise a hand or you can type your question on the chat box. So only 2 questions. Anybody? Right. It seems like I don't see any questions raised here. I'm gonna give you 3 seconds. Right. I think there is none. Sister Edith, thank you.
I would just like to say that I very much agree with this approach. It is much more important that people focus on the positive things, and even if they have to isolate, focus on yourself, on your health. Stick the photos in the album where you didn't have time to for the last 5 years. Don't mope. Be grateful that you are alive, and always look on the bright side. It's making such a difference whether people are miserable and depressed, or whether they say, this is a good opportunity for me to catch up with my sleep, to rest, and focus on being well. That was a very important reminder that it's the mindset that often makes the difference between a case going this way and that way. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Anka, for that input. Right. So I think, friends, since there's no questions, so once again, thank you so much, Sister Edith, for joining us this afternoon, and for those information that you shared to us. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and for sure, we have been blessed, by your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate that. And I see a few of my friends there, and I appreciate you guys. And like Dr. Anka said, one of the things I was going to mention is definitely pick up a hobby. I bought a piano. So when people were talking about what to buy during the lockdown and what they were going to eat, I said, oh, you're right. I'm not going anywhere. So I went and bought myself a piano because I used to play a long time ago. And I started back learning how to play. And that's kept my days going. So pick up a hobby and do something, and you're gonna be surprised how time flies, and it's all gonna be good. So yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now over to Pastor Tremon.
Amazing. Praise God. Thank you, Dr. Anka. Thank you, Dr. Chidi, and thank you, Edith, for your presentations. They were very informative. And I'm sure we were all blessed. I know I was blessed, definitely, 100%. We're going to go into the next series by the next session, acknowledging our churches in Area 2. I want to say 2020 has been an extraordinary year for all our churches in Area 2. And we've had to overcome various challenges to be where we are today. So for the next 50 minutes, we will hear from our churches in Area 2, on what challenges they've faced and how they have dealt with these challenges. But before I do that, I want to just acknowledge that at the end of September, Pastor Alan Hart will be moving on from the Gloucester district and moving to a new district. And I could not let the occasion pass without acknowledging him and giving my own personal farewell, and a farewell from Gloucester Church. So I want to turn over now to the AV team, who has a video to play on that.
Massive goodbye.
been a very enriching experience. It's wonderful to be able to, and this is exactly what Jesus has called us to do. He's called us to serve the needs, meet the needs of the community.
Kitchen has been running for 30 years, so it's a really long time. We're very proud of what Gloucester has built here. The Gloucester members have been amazing in managing to keep it going, because one of the challenges is finding the volunteers to keep it going, but Gloucester Church has always managed to have volunteers who keep it running, and it has.
It's been a very enriching experience. It's wonderful to be able to, and this is exactly what Jesus has called us to do. He's called us to serve the needs, meet the needs of the community, right? And we've received wonderful support financially from many different quarters, and God has provided wonderfully for us to be able to keep the soup kitchen open. We've also get a lot of foodstuffs from various supermarkets, and they've been very generous in their provision of providing food for us that we can distribute it to the folks who come here.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Been involved with the church for quite a few years now. Previous to Pastor Hart, I was pastor in the pastor ministry. And me and himself had a good rapport, and with the congregation here, I learned really well. That was how I got in contact with the church, and the bond began. With that in mind, when the COVID started, I was just thinking, how on earth can we help these people that would be vulnerable and would be on the street? And thankfully, through yourself and Pastor Hart, and Suku especially, made the connection with the soup run that we done, which was basically the donations from donating to the hotels, and through that, myself and Pastor Hart came to realise what was needed, and thankfully they allowed Sarah and myself to use the premises here.
We're the only people open during COVID for food. Nowhere else was open at all, so it's been an essential part of people's lives, and it's gone from about 20 people on Sunday right up to 67.
What exactly do you do with the homeless?
We have cooked for the homeless, form filling. We help a lot with.
So here we are inside the hall, the youth hall, where we have all the food laid out in baskets. We've got bread. What's the bread? We've got books as well. That we distribute. And here's a gentleman. He used to be from Emmaus.
Yes.
And what about now?
No.
Working at Emmaus now. How do you find working here at the church?
Much better. It's all right. Yeah. Much more friendly and all that. Yeah. Emmaus used to be good, but not now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. What's your name?
Neil.
Neil. Nice to meet you, Neil. Nice to see you. My friend, how are you finding it? Yeah. Looking for anything in particular?
Just I've already seen.
Yeah. Enjoy. Here we have Suku helping out two elderly people with their housing, possibly.
This is fine. Let's get
Somebody didn't do it. I actually put the tractor into the van, the whole stuff in the bag.
I think they're that personal, it's nice helping people. I like it, you see, good experience also, it's nice to be able to experience maybe helping homeless people out. It's nice to give something back in life.
And what about you, Michelle?
I enjoy doing working in the kitchen. It's given me experience in the kitchen on a night on a Sunday, learning the skills in cooking, get more knowing what to cook out of just vegetables and whatever we can.
So here we are in the kitchen. Here is Lynn. Hello, Lynn. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm absolutely fine, thank you.
What are you doing today, Lynn?
I'm fine, absolutely spiffing.
What are you doing right now?
Giving out the food, the sandwiches, cakes, and coffee if they require it, or a cold drink.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Has anyone come yet?
Yeah, there's somebody here. Could I offer you a sandwich? At the moment, we've got egg or tuna, so just pretend to take egg. Okay.
Okay. Good stuff. All right.
Thank you. Enjoy.
So there you have it. That was our Gloucester Church. First video was an appreciation for Pastor Hart, and the second video was what we are actually doing in Gloucester Church with the soup kitchen. We are now going to move on to the next church, which is James Shipley with Swindon Church.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for your presentation, Edith. That was wonderful. Dr. Anker too, really enjoyed that. I think Dr. Chidi's not with us anymore, but his was excellent as normal. And so just to give a brief insight into what's been happening in the churches in Swindon and in Cheltenham in the last 6 months. Of course, we've all got used to doing Zoom, and we'd love to be together and hugging one another and so on. We just know that medically that's not advisable right now. So we're looking forward to doing that when it's possible, but not for the moment. So it's been kind of a challenging time, but it's also been a very creative time too. So doing lots of things differently. And I hope you're going to get an insight in the next 2 presentations about what's been happening in Swindon and Cheltenham. So I'm going to pass over to Elder Esther Williams to talk about Swindon, and then Brett Woolridge will talk a little bit about some of the creative stuff he's been doing in Cheltenham. Esther.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you for the opportunity to share what's been going on in Swindon Church. We have had challenges, just like most of the other churches. And we have had to support each other to try and get through those challenges. So we have a small PowerPoint presentation just to show you a few highlights of what's been happening in Swindon Church. So we've worked quite well with Jonas in the Portuguese church, the IT whiz, who's done quite a lot of the posters and stuff that we've used. Additionally, like all the other churches, because of Zoom and the COVID pandemic, we've had to move virtually. So we have had to put our services online. Much of the thanks go to our first elder, Sam, who quickly put a team together and started streaming our services, not only on Zoom, but on Facebook. And, from week to week, we have grown stronger and more efficient in the way that we streamline our services. So thank you very much, Elder Sam. Additionally, during the pandemic, we tried to have a bit of a community focus and reached out to our neighbors, putting cards through the door, telling them that we're there for them. We then invested close to £200 in food stuff, which was kept at the church and ready for anyone that reached out to us. By the end of June, July, most of that food stuff had gone, and we were able to support the community and those who reached out to us. Sadly, during the pandemic, we lost one of our beloved deacons, Kennedy Sarpong, a very sad moment in the life of the church. And we really had to pull together to support each other through that difficult time, as well as the family. And the church really showed Jesus, the face of Jesus, by supporting not only in a spiritual way, but also in a practical way to help us get through that time. And, you know, we just owe a big thank you to the churches across Swindon. In the background of all of that, you know, our church was being redecorated and refurbished. We had our lovely David and Caroline, two members of our church, a husband and wife team, who passionately worked many hours to repaint and help redecorate the church. So thank you very much, David and Caroline. As part of our Zoom services, we also had the wife of our first elder, Sister Pat, who organized a week of children evangelism. And during that week, she spearheaded a lesson in etiquette, which was very much enjoyed by the children and by the adults as well, how to lay a table and how to treat parents to a meal. So that was very much enjoyed. In the background of all of this was our prayer team, a really, really strong stalwart for the church that helped through the pandemic, made themselves available for prayer. We launched a Facebook page where loads of people reached out to us from across the world, and we were able to pray with them, but also help in a practical way. We also initiated our Area 2 all-night of prayer, and the prayer team has really been used by God in a marvelous way during this time. We also now have a 24-hour prayer line. And last but not least, within the last couple of weeks, we teamed up with Salisbury and some of the other churches in Area 2 to do street ministry. And you will hear a little bit more about that from Sister Hilda. But all in all, we see the blessings of God on the Swindon church and the community. And we just really have to say, you know, thank you for the way that He has kept us during this very difficult time.
Hi, my name's Brett and I'm from Cheltenham Church. So hi. We've been very fortunate at Cheltenham with some great talented people who got us onto Zoom on week 1. And we've had more meetings than we ever did before COVID because of Zoom. And it means people don't have to travel. And so we have a lot more people attending our meetings, which is great news. We've also been running the Bible Society's Bible course across Area 2, and also the Talking Jesus course on Zoom to the teens at Cheltenham. And we hope to continue with the Zoom courses even after COVID, because it means that non-Christians can learn about Jesus without even worrying about going into a church and all that that means to non-Christians. I'd like to let you know of a special program the pastor, the Cheltenham pastor and I, James and I are running, and it's called Talking Jesus, and we'll start on October the 5th at 7 p.m. on the same Zoom ID number. And Talking Jesus is a British 6-part video and discussion series that'll give you the confidence and the skills you need to help you talk about Jesus with your non-Christian friends and family. The course also reminds us that it's the Father who leads people to Jesus, and it's nothing to do with us. In the Gospel of John, chapter 6, verse 44, Jesus is speaking and says, "No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them, and I will raise them up at the last day. And this course helps us to trust in God's timing and to trust that God will speak through us to our friends and family. We've run this course already with the teens at Cheltenham, as I said, and they loved it. And I'm sure you will too. The course is 6 one-hour sessions, and each session consists of 2 videos and 2 discussions. But don't worry, you won't be asked to speak unless you really want to. And we'll also send you a free book as well. And that will help you during the course and also after it's finished. So please join Pastor James and myself on October the 5th, Monday, 7 p.m. on the same Zoom ID number for session 1. I'll leave you with a short video about the Talking Jesus series. See you soon. Bye.
So one of the last things that Jesus said when he was here on the earth was, go and make disciples of everyone.
We're going to be getting inspired to share our faith with those around us, get some practical tips on how to do it, and look at what it is we're exactly sharing.
This is for people like you and me.
We're already the right people in the right place. We're ideal to do mission in normal, everyday life.
You got anyone coming? How about your mates?
Trust me, it's not their thing. They're the last people in the world that want to come.
Ask them.
I find when I talk about Jesus, I feel like I'm involved in something really weighty, you know, something that really matters.
I find that generally people are very open about things of God, and actually they do want to talk about it.
You know, if a friend tells you somewhere's really good, or a family member does, then you're going to want to check it out.
The best recommendation for Jesus is not somebody distant, it's not someone out there. It's your friend, it's your brother.
People, by your lifestyle, will see the different way you live.
Be your authentic, real self, sharing your experience of what it means to walk with Jesus.
And each of us have got stories to tell about how Christ made a difference in our lives.
I've got something for you, a gift.
We're going to be looking at how to share God's story with those around us.
We've been given this responsibility and this privilege of sharing God's love with others.
It's just prayer. You can't get it wrong with prayer. Just find 5 people you need to pray for, keep praying for them. And as you continue to pray for them, God begins to work in your heart as well.
This is Talking Jesus, training Christians to share their faith.
My Jesus, my Savior, Lord, there is none like you. All of my days, I want to praise the wonders of your mighty love. Lord, I come to you, let my heart be changed, renewed, flowing from the grace that I found in you. Just as I am, I'm waiting, God, to rid my soul of wonder.
When you hear the chariots calling, fare you well, fare you well. And I pray, get no morning, fare you well, fare you well. And I pray, get no morning, fare you well, fare you well. When you see the lightning flash and
My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior, has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns unending.
Savior knocking, He's knocking at your door.
Don't you wanna make haste to meet your Maker?
Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I don't deserve a chance like this. I don't deserve a love that gives me everything. You're everything I want. I don't deserve your love, but you give it to me anyway. God and God alone reveals the truth of all we call unknown, and the best and worst of men won't change the Master's plan. It's God's and God's alone. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I made it. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus.
Hi, my name is Fabrício Guimarães. I'm a pastor of Swindon Portuguese Church. Well, this year was literally quite tough. We're living in a quite tough moment. You know, this during like the situation of coronavirus, you can literally struggling with the situation. But we try to keep up and building our relation with the members. We're still doing Zoom programs. It means working quite well. We literally had we're still having like a program on Saturday morning with like the members, Sabbath school and worship later. And the attendance is quite good. Sometimes it's around 80, 90 devices connected. And then we use as well our Facebook and YouTube. It means that you can reach more people. Of course, it's difficult because we cannot meet each other. You know, our church is still closed. Even though we try our best, you know, and we try to building bridges, you know, to reach all members of our church. We will try try to contact all members. Every day I'm reach like 2 or 3 or 4 members, talk to them, asking them how is the situation. And we had like a group of our church that help these people. If there's some people who needs like food or something, we have like a special group, and then you can provide the needs, foods or whatever. And well, yes, it's quite good. Of course, as I said, we had like it's not the best moment we are living at the moment, but you are literally try to do our best. As I said, like especially like on Zoom programs, we have like our prayer meeting on Tuesday. We have like a special time on Friday as well, the sunset time, and our program on Sabbath. Yes, I hope it's gonna be fine. I hope this is gonna be a good moment. In the future, you're gonna literally look at behind and see, wow, you are here. And I'm still praying for our church and for our members, and I hope soon we can literally have a normal life. Okay, thank you very much. Bye bye.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. The brief word that I have for you today is called a reason to be thankful. This year has certainly been the most unpredictable year that I've ever known. During my master's in 2019, I came across this notion of generational change. And what it means is that as the world around us changes, those in their formative years experience a shift in their thinking, and thereby, in some way, they become a unique generation. I particularly studied Generation Z. These are, as some sociologists say, born between the years of 1995 and 2009. And what we observed was that change occurred over a period of time. This year, change was rapid, it was fast, and life was ever changeable. And so if you probably missed one day of the newspapers, you know, you're likely that you were out of date. Sadly, this year, many great and precious lives were also lost. And we love and revere and care for such people. And those who are at the more mature years and with some health concerns, they were the most at risk. And sadly, this pandemic that caught us all by surprise in 2020 has not come to pass. Not yet. I want to tell you about a person called David, and this person in the Psalms, he tells us that his life was at stake more than a few times. And Psalm 35 verse 17b says, this is what David says, "Protect me from these lions." And in verse 18 he says, "Then I will thank you in the great congregation. I will praise you before all the people." And so, friend, if you are alive in such difficult times, then you and we have great reasons to be thankful. And so therefore, my brief highlights will be with this theme of thanksgiving. And so, first of all, I just want to thank God that so far at the Swindon Old Town and the Devices Group, we did not lose anyone to COVID. But we feel deeply the loss around us, and for a beloved deacon at the main Swindon church. And so as COVID came, our focus had been to really keep everybody safe. That was the first thing. Secondly, we tried to provide encouragement for people and to inspire people to stay on track in their faith. And currently, actually, what we are doing in both groups, we're trying to discover God's vision for our group, because I believe that this is what will help us to flourish into the seasons ahead of us. Vision, really, friends, you know, if you're wondering what it is, it's a vivid imagination for the future that compels us to follow. You know, the Bible is very clear that people or churches without vision, the Bible says people without vision, they perish. It means that, you know, great things are unlikely to happen. And so our focus has been really to discover this. And early in the year, we had some interactive sessions with everybody, and we have been working through this period as well to unravel what God has for us, so that we can pull up our sleeves and everybody will join and everybody will be focused. And we are very deeply passionate to reach people for Christ and to make positive impact into the community. And now, friends, you know, I want to thank the leaders at both groups, you know, because they have kept the people together for their tremendous work and impact they have done, and for the necessary support during these times. I want to particularly thank Peter and Mike and Kwesi at the Swindon Old Town Group, and Denise at the Devices Group. And so, thank you so much. And as I close my message, you know, I want to remind you, friends, that as long as God protects us from this pestilence, we have a great reason to thank Him and to be thankful. Thank you, friends. God bless you.
For Bristol, we are going to look at this video for what has been happening throughout this pandemic. First and foremost, just to thank you for every member who was so excited to take on this new opportunity in the challenging moments to ensure that we can reach out to our community. We can also reach out to within the community of believers. So we're going to look at this video.
And physical needs of our church community. The church board implemented a family tree system in which the church community was intentionally divided into groups, each headed by an elder and supported by a small group of board members. Groups were tasked with establishing and making regular contact with their assigned members. Prayer and health has very much been the center of what we do. As well as the midweek prayer meetings, an early morning prayer slot was also introduced where we pray for the needs of our community. The community health team have been proactive and they facilitate a short health spot each week to improve members' health. An extensive range of virtual programs were launched, providing something for each subsection, whether this be children, teens, youth, men, women, as well as our main worship experiences. One of our flagship programs has been Monday Light Life. This has been facilitated by the Social and Family Life departments as an opportunity for the whole church community to come together, laugh together, and share together, also to learn together. A wide range of activities have been held, including cookery sessions, exercise classes, quizzes, music evenings, and gardening, to name but 5. Through this, we have not only been able to get to know each other more, but we've been able to establish links with other churches such as Swindon and further afield. A small walking group has been established, enabling a small group to go out on a weekly basis. Others have been challenged to change their lifestyle and take up a new hobby. Couple with Jesus, facilitated by women's ministries, has been another activity that has really made an impact. Each session has a theme topic and would enable ladies from across the globe to share together, pray together, learn together, and support each other. We are very pleased that sessions were not only supported by church members, but by those from our community. 3 individuals have expressed their desire to have Bible studies. Our children and young people have not been left out, but have been well catered for by the respective ministries. Weekly children's church, adventurers, pathfinders, youth Bible study, and youth catch-up sessions have been established, as well as weekly keeping in touch sessions. We're now looking to set up a tuition service, providing support for school-aged children. As Bristol is blessed with an abundance of young people, the challenge has been to ensure that they are supported, challenged, and encouraged, especially if they're a student and/or young family from overseas. The young ministry team has been relentless in ensuring that they connect with each young person, offering spiritual and practical support such as food parcels and nutritious meals and signposting. They are also looking at how they can share their faith by producing digital content that can be shared with their peers. They are also looking to set up a mentoring scheme in partnership with area leaders. The church building has continued to be a base for the food share scheme, enabling individuals from the community to be referred to the church for support. During lockdown, members have been challenged to consider what is in their hands. In response to this, the Deaconesses team have come together and have been making quilts and blankets for the community and are liaising with a local mother centre. As we adjust to the new normal, we praise God for the opportunities He has afforded for us to minister to others.
So I really want to thank God for all those that have been relentlessly engaged in expanding the kingdom as we are doing the loving ministry of our Lord and Savior, even as we await for His Son coming. Thank you all, and God bless you. Continue to do the good work in these very, very challenging and difficult moments. God is in charge, and He will reward us. when we do not give up.
Happy Sabbath, everyone. During this global pandemic, the Bath Church, like most others in Area 2 and around the world, have experienced the full range of emotions. We've had births, we've had deaths, thankfully not of members, but sadly family members who have been lost to the virus. We've had a delayed wedding, major surgeries, dental emergencies, people starting jobs, people losing jobs, cancelled trips to see loved ones far away, disruption for our uni and school students, frustration at not being able to get audio working on a Zoom call. I'm sure some of you can relate to that. Healing from disease, amazing answers to prayer. And throughout it all, God has been very near to us while we've had to remain far apart. We've kept in touch through the wonders of modern technology. We've met for weekly online services, some more so than others, but most of all, our members have continued to be salt and light wherever they find themselves, running Bible studies, helping in the communities, reaching out to strangers, fasting and praying. Could we have done more? Should we have done some things differently? Probably. But I'd like us in Bath and all of us in Area 2 not to dwell on past mistakes, but to look to the future. We started lockdown without a pastor. We now have one starting next week. Welcome, Pastor Hart. And we have the prospect of resuming in-person services very soon. There is cause for optimism. We don't know precisely what the future holds, but we do know that there is great work to be done. And we know that our Father in heaven will never let us down. He'll be guiding every step of the way. Let's really make the next days, weeks, months, however long it takes until Jesus comes again, count. And like Paul, may we each be able to say, I've fought the good fight, I've finished the race, I've kept the faith. Amen. Thank you.
Over to you, Ruth.
This evening, and I would like to say that Lodge Causeway Church, although the last 6 months have been the strangest of times for all of us, as the weeks have gone by, I'm sure that all of you, as with all of us, have felt that the second coming of our Lord is drawing ever nearer. And as that day approaches, we need to draw strength and support from one another as from God. You know, when lockdown first began, none of us here in Lodge Causeway had any idea really how Zoom worked. And for the first few weeks, we actually tuned into other services like Stanborough Park or one of the London churches or Newbold to try to get some fellowship with somebody. And while the programs were uplifting and enjoyable and really enriching, they lacked something. What they lacked was our church family, and we all missed each other. So Zoom services have given us back that fellowship to some degree, and we are thankful for that. We have a regular group who tune into our Sabbath school and our morning service every week. It's enabled us to worship and to praise God together each week, and even to enjoy music. Even though we have to be singing in our own homes on our own, at least we have been able to enjoy hymn singing from watching it on the Zoom program. And even some of our younger members who are musically gifted have been able to do musical items for us, which has been enjoyable and enriching for all of us. Unfortunately, this method of worship doesn't reach everyone. Some of our members have not joined us, or even though we give them details on emails, they haven't joined us for Zoom services. For our very elderly members, that may be because they're not technically able or they don't have the facility to do this. Others may choose voluntarily to continue to worship with other churches. But it really doesn't matter. We try to keep contact with as many of our members as possible. We use every means available: WhatsApp, text messages, emails, phone calls, anything we can think of, we use to reach out to our members, to try to speak to them, to have contact with them, to find out what they need. But all of us miss the warmth of direct communication. Particularly in Sabbath school, we find that we've noticed that people are more reluctant to contribute what they think during the Sabbath school lesson on a Zoom platform than they do in a face-to-face context. But in spite of that, we've had unexpected blessings too. Blessings that have arisen from these Zoom programs that we could never have expected. We have been in contact through our Zoom program with friends and relations of our church members in places as far away as Kenya, the Philippines, even as far as Florida, as well as places in this country, London and Wales, and all sorts of places where members have joined us for our Zoom Sabbath School program and enriched our program. And we have more than that. Through our Zoom Sabbath School services, we have actually been able to reach out to friends of our members who have never come to our church, who have never attended a service, who know nothing about Adventism probably, but have come along to our Zoom Sabbath morning programs. And that has been a real blessing. And one thing we have introduced that has been beneficial to all of us, after our Sabbath morning service, we've introduced a social time where we can fellowship and talk to each other on Zoom. And that has been really beneficial in helping some of our members who live alone to have a platform where they feel they can have a conversation with somebody and see the person that they're talking to. We've had our sadnesses. We have lost 2 members in this last 6 months, not related to Zoom, but it is sad because we are unable and restricted to attend funerals. But we've also had blessings because we've had a new baby born into our church, and we know that we have another one on the way. So we have a future to look forward to. And we're really happy that from the beginning of next month, we will also have a new pastor, because throughout this whole time, we haven't had a pastor either. You know, we all long to reopen our church and actually meet with each other. And we're very nearly there, we hope, now. But until that's possible, Zoom has been a lifeline for us here at Lodge Causeway, and we thank God for it. And we thank God for all of our membership, wherever they are. And we pray that God will bless you all and that we will all work together for the Lord's coming. Amen. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Happy Sabbath. It's very nice to see everyone and very nice to hear all the beautiful testimonies from the churches that everyone is active, reaching out in their communities. And thank you for inviting us. I'm Hilda from Salisbury Church Plant, and I would like just to share with you what's happening in our church. And just briefly, a few words about our church plant. We started nearly 6 years ago with 8 members in Salisbury, hiring a hall. And the Lord blessed us so much that we are growing year by year. And now we have about 30, 40, sometimes 50 people attending. And and our focus always been on evangelizing. We've been always going out, singing in the parks, singing in city centers, giving out books, literatures in post boxes, inviting people for Bible studies. So it's been a blessing to see that Salisbury Church is growing. And during this pandemic, it was a challenging time, of course. We were doing Zoom meetings from the beginning. Also, every evening we had something like prayer meeting or Bible studies, or we started to do the 28 fundamental beliefs on Zoom as well, because there was a lady who wanted to get baptized. So we've been busy. Also, we've been, of course, missing the church services. Some members also was continue to give out literatures in post boxes. So we tried to do still the reaching out. But after lockdown, like when the restriction was eased, we decided to go out on the streets and distributing books, sharing the word of God, talking to people. And we started to do that, and we've been so blessed by it. We saw the great need that people are actually stopping, taking books from us, talking to us. People are wondering what's happening in the world, of course, and what the future holds. So we really saw the great need. So we decided that we're going to go every Sabbath. So we split, like we have two groups now. One group is doing the Zoom meetings, and the other group is going to cities, in bigger cities, sharing the word of God. And also we decided that not just giving out books, we singing on the streets, people are stopping and listening, and they thank us and they feel so blessed. And also we started to preach on the streets, because what we can see when we go in a big city, we see that Satan soldiers, we can call them like that, taking people's mind away, entertaining people with their music, with their activities. And where are Christian soldiers from the streets? So we decided that we have to be there, and we have to share the great hope that we have in Jesus, that he is coming back very soon, and he is in control, and he has a plan with this pandemic as well, and we can always turn to him for help. So we are on fire to do this work, and it's been amazing to see that we visited a few cities, and many churches now joining us from Oxford, from Swindon, from Southampton, from Eastbourne, and they really want to do this work as well. So we prepared a little presentation for you with pictures, and we are continue to visit cities by cities, and we would like to ask you, if you're interested to do this work, we can actually visit your town and help you or do it together. And now I hand over to Jay. He will take you through the presentation and some pictures. And in the end, we have a lovely song, what we were singing last Sabbath in Swindon with all our hearts, and many people stopped and listened. And it was so amazing to see that God is working in people's hearts, and they're more receptive within this pandemic. So we feel that we really need to be out there and sharing the word of God, the hope we have in Jesus. May God bless you all.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Sister Hilda. Before I go to the picture, I'll show you all the pictures. I just wanted to share to you Matthew 24:14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world. Hold on a second, I lost my... Sorry about that. To all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. And the reason we are going out is because we are motivated with what God's motivation to offer salvation to humankind. God's greatest desire is to see every person saved and transformed by His Spirit. He loves every human being. His love has no limits. His compassion is everlasting, and His forgiveness is endless. God is a loving Father who wants all His children to come home as soon as possible. And the people needs to know this. So we are here. We are all here to work for the glory of God, to be able to let the people and the people know that God that God loves them, and they want us all to go home in His kingdom. And here are the pictures that we would like to show you. We've been into Winchester City Center. We've been doing some, like Sister Hilda, we've been doing some distributing books and singing on the street. And also we've been to Bournemouth Beach as well, in Bournemouth City. And also we have been to Portsmouth City Center and Southampton City Center as well. So this is basically like every Saturday, Sabbath day, we are going out. And also we have been to Eastbourne City Center and Bath City Center and Oxford City Center as well. And also we've just recently been to Swindon City Center. And we have the incredible privilege and awesome responsibility, as well as the eternal joy of participating with Christ and cooperating with Him in His mission. So before we end, I would like to share to you, just like what Sister Hilda said, this street evangelizing and singing on the street we were doing. So I hope you enjoy it.
Jay, I'm afraid we're not hearing you. We're not hearing the music. Jay, if you restart and then press the option to optimize sound, then we should hear.
Thank you all. So that's what we were doing in this in every city center. We were singing on the street, and I hope that you are all encouraged as well. So just like what Sister Hilda said, you are all invited to join us, and we can come to your cities, and so we could come and help you on doing this. And may God bless us all.
Right. Once again, thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to share to you what has been going on since the lockdown in weston-super, Croscombe, and Yeovil. As we all know, that this pandemic has put a stop to everything that no one could possibly imagine, and all has changed drastically, and that includes our church life and even our outreach programs such as the Cookery Club and the Craft Club, which has been running for a number of years. Normally in the Craft Club, we have around 20 to 25 people attending from the community, but the fact that most of our attendees are elderly, so we find it a bit of a challenge, how to keep the Craft Club running, since most of them are elderly members of the community. But despite of that, I can say that God is good, for He has opened a new way of ministering to each other and also to others. And so during the pandemic, my daughter and I began a ministry online. We called it Sabbath at Home. And of course, I'm so grateful with my wife as well, Mabel, because she helped us a lot with the recording. So my daughter and I were we were in tandem. We were working side by side in this ministry, online ministry, and even until now, we are still sitting side by side. Here she is. So so what we did was we recorded my sermons, and then my daughter would did the music. Sometimes she would do a little talk, and members in and outside of the district, would submit songs, requests, and then Ryan, my daughter, would play it on the next Sabbath. So somehow in that online ministry, we were able to keep the connection going. And then, of course, the weston-super came up with a Zoom meeting. And we also had prayer meetings as well. In fact, we did our first virtual baby dedication. We have baby James Isaiah with his parents, Lynn Roy and Zara. So I'm so thankful and grateful for the members of Weston Supermare and also Croscombe, because they joined together. Even Croscombe Church, they always join Weston Supermare Zoom services. So we have prayer meetings and also Sabbath programs together. So by God's grace, we were able to keep that connection going. And of course, Yeovil Church also managed to come up with Zoom meetings, and through this program, members were able to connect to each other. Our young people there, Tim, in his leadership, he continues doing the Bible studies as well. And I'm so grateful for the elders of Yeovil Church for all the hard work, and also the members who are very supportive. So I really appreciate everyone at Yeovil Church. And also in weston-super, despite of the restrictions, we were able to celebrate the 100th birthday of one of our members, Laurie. So yes, despite with the restrictions that we have by using our hall, so we were able to manage to celebrate his 100th birthday with friends and families, and of course with the church folks. And the last but not the least, in spite of this COVID-19, nothing can stop us, especially for my daughter to commit her life to Jesus. So we had her baptism in August. And as the Bible says, nothing can separate us from the love of God, neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor nothing, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God. And so once again, thank you so much for all the elders of Yeovil, weston-super, and Crosscombe Church, for all the officers, and also for all the members for the continuing support that you have given to me and to my family, and of course to all of us. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My church I take care, and the church, three church, of course, just not this church, two church plants, and one church, Highbridge, and Shard, and Taunton. I have here my PowerPoint, able to share my screens. The host allowed me. Okay. A hybrid church is a plant church, is the new one. I started to work with this church this year, but the pandemic not allowed me to go beyond to do my project in this church. Let's go my next step. Let's try to see my PowerPoint here. Okay. Yes. On the screen not. Yeah, I think it's my PowerPoint on the screen. Everybody see or not?
Yes.
Yeah, we can. Yes, is that okay? Thank you. Yes. Taunton Church and Shard and Highbridge. Highbridge is a church plant, and Shard is a church plant. I've started to work in Highbridge this year, but you have some projects. But as you know, the COVID not allowed me to go beyond. But as I know from last year, Brother George and his family and the church do some outreach in the city. I hope you will start to go back with the plan to do this evangelism over there. In Shard, you start to work last year for April last year. You do a lot of evangelism over there called evangelism dinner. You did in 2 times. The last one has 95 people come on, not Adventist. And this year you start to do again, by the COVID not allowed us, but you have 20. Just wait to do the baptism. Just wait to the COVID passed on to do the baptism. But the Zoom in Shard is went very, very, very well. Very, very well. Every Sabbath you at least have 25, 35 computer. This half of computer is not Adventist. It's not just people. You start back with us, and it's still there. It's still there. I'm glad for all these people. When the pandemic come, it's not disappear. It just come together. To be honest with you, my brother and sister, and the Shard Church is more better now that the door is open. It's more better now on Zoom. It's more people coming, more people enjoy us, more people enjoy the fellowship. All the people over there, it's nice to have this church on Zoom because growing, more the church open. And in Taunton, we will start this year to visit all the nurse home in Taunton. You start to do the first one, the second one, the pandemic stopped us to do, but I hope you continue this next year, maybe next year. But the great thing is that when the Taunton church is closed, everybody go to the Zoom, and all this plan for the visitor, this nurse home, and stop. And people very sad because the church is closed. When I said to people, the church will open again, you know what's happening? The members come very quick to prepare the church, to clean up the church, to do the deep clean. You see here in my PowerPoint. Let's move in. Yes, you see that you start to clean the church, to clean up the church. Oh, I said to clean up all the church, surround the church, and use the machine to clean to clean everything. You start to clean, to cut the glass, and to paint, and to clean the carpets. And oh, look there, how different now. Look like new, and all the carpet upstairs and in the front, inside the church, everything now is shine. Then on 12th of September, finally, the church opened the door, and the members start to come. You open the door, and the first Sabbath, you have 2 visitors. The second Sabbath, you have more 2 visitors. And the fourth Sabbath, have more 5 visitors just booked to come. Then all the members is happy to go back in the house of the Lord. People enjoy them. This, and the church is still to do this outreach. You have a lot of plan for this building for these years, but the COVID not allowed us to do. I hope the next year you open this building to do the mini center of influence in Tonto. The mini center of influence in Tonto. I hope this next year it will be true. And thank you for listening, and God bless you.
Let us pray together. Loving Father in heaven, we thank you for the blessings of this Sabbath day. We thank you, dear Lord, that as an area too, we could have gotten together to fellowship on this day of fellowship and learn to know one another better. We thank you, dear Lord, for committed and dedicated pastors. We thank you, dear Lord, for dedicated and committed church members and leaders in our churches who during this time have kept our churches going. Our buildings may be closed, but Lord, today we see that your church is alive and functioning and working and praising your name. And so we know, dear Lord, that we have nothing to fear for the future because we know that you hold the future in your hands. And so I pray, dear Lord, that you'll be with all of our churches in Area 2, that you'll continue to bless us day by day. And may it be, dear Lord, that each and every one of us with our loved ones will be saved on that day when Jesus comes in the clouds of glory. Because this is our purpose for being here on earth, is to see people saved for your kingdom. And so bless us now, we pray, as we go into this new week. In Jesus' name we ask. Amen.